Lin Wan, you jinx, where's my son's allowance this month? Hand it over now. The shrill, venomous curses pierced Lin Wan's eardrums like steel needles. Her eyes flew open. Instead of a sterile hospital ceiling, she saw grimy adobe walls adorned with a faded "Serve the People" propaganda poster. Hadn't she died already, perished in that cramped 8-square-meter rental, consumed by endless illness and regret? Are you deaf? I'm talking to you. A calloused hand shoved her violently. Lin Wan staggered, turning to face a wrinkled visage twisted with malice. It was her mother-in-law, Zhang Suihua. Autumn, 1975. Location, Northern City Military Compound, Gu Residence. Lin Wan's mind reeled. She had been reborn, transported back to her 20th year, the second year of her marriage to Regimental Commander Gu Yanchen. This marked the turning point of her tragic life. In her past life, on this very day, Zhang Suihua had forced her to surrender Gu Yanchen's entire monthly stipend, their sole livelihood, to fund her brother-in-law Gu Yanchen's betrothal gifts. She'd refused, knowing starvation awaited her and her child otherwise. Through tears and protests, she ultimately welcomed home only a travel-worn Gu Yanchen. The handsome man's face was etched with exhaustion and irritation as he coldly snapped, "We're family, what's all this fuss about? Just give Mom the money, the greater good comes first." Those words, the greater good, pierced through her marital illusions like a knife. From then on, she became the Gu family's endless blood bank, their insatiable demands matched only by her endless concessions. By the time her health collapsed, Gu Yanchen merely tossed her some money with a frown, telling her to recuperate back home, never sparing her another glance. For that man, she'd forfeited her chance to return to the city, abandoned college entrance exams, sacrificed her entire future, only to be drained of every last drop of usefulness and discarded like a worn-out rag. Regrets, hatred, I'm sick with regret. Cat got your tongue. Listen here, Lin Wan, Yanjin's wedding is our family's top priority. As his sister-in-law, how can you not contribute? What will people think of our Gu family? How will Yanchen maintain his dignity in the military? Zhang Suihua planted her hands on her hips, spittle flying as she berated the silent woman. Brother-in-law Gu Yanjin lounged nearby cracking melon seeds, legs casually crossed as he added with icy sarcasm, "Exactly, my brother's monthly allowance is huge, you can't possibly spend it all alone. Sis, what's wrong with helping me out? After I'm married, won't I still be calling you sister-in-law?" His fiancée Wang Li sat to the side, head bowed as she fake-wiped tears. "Aunt Suihua, maybe we should just call off the wedding. Don't pressure sister-in-law like this. It's just my bad luck. Look at this family, playing good cop and bad cop so convincingly." In her past life, she'd been completely fooled by their two-faced act. Lin Wan's gaze swept over each of them. Those faces that once filled her with fear, pain, and despair now seemed utterly ridiculous. Suddenly, the corner of her mouth twitched into a smile. The faint smile cut through the room like a bucket of ice water, instantly silencing everyone. Zhang Suihua froze. Lin Wan, who usually burst into tears at the slightest criticism, was actually smiling today. That unsettling grin sent chills down her spine. Lin Wan rose to her feet, her frail frame and pallid face making her seem ready to collapse in a breeze, yet her eyes burned with startling intensity, like stars forged in fire. She stepped toward Zhang Suihua and spoke with deliberate clarity, every syllable ringing through the stunned silence. Zhang Suihua dug at her ear, thinking she must have misheard. "I said, sure," Lin Wan repeated softly yet firmly, "I'll cover Yanchen's allowance, not just this month, every month from now on." Gu Yanjin's eyes lit up. He sprang to his feet, sunflower seed shell still clinging to his lips. "Sis-in-law, you're truly magnanimous." Wang Li stopped her crocodile tears and looked up in pleasant surprise. Zhang Suihua's face lit up with delight, her wrinkles crinkling like chrysanthemum petals. "That's more like it. I always said our Lin Wan was the most sensible." Yet Lin Wan's next words froze the smiles on their faces. "You'll get every penny," she said coldly, her gaze sweeping over their greedy expressions before adding, "But this marriage, I'm done. Once Gu Yanchen returns, we'll finalize the paperwork. Divorce." Zhang Suihua's eyes bulged like copper bells, as if she'd just heard the most preposterous fairy tale. In these times, the word divorce, especially coming from a military wife, was nothing short of a bombshell. This wasn't just domestic trouble, it was scandalous. It could ruin Gu Yanchen's career. "Have you lost your mind, Lin Wan? Are you insane?" Zhang Suihua shrieked, jabbing her finger accusingly. "How dare you mention divorce? You're just some country bumpkin. If it weren't for our Yanchen, you'd still be digging dirt in the countryside. Who do you think you are?" Gu Yanjin grew frantic. "Sis, you can't be serious. My brother's a regiment commander. Where would you go if you divorced him?" Are you out of your mind? They didn't believe her. They thought Lin Wan was putting on airs, using this as leverage to threaten them. In her past life, she'd tried this before, sobbing about this marriage being unbearable, only to be dismissed with Gu Yanchen's curt, "Stop making a scene." But this time, Lin Wan didn't even bat an eyelid. She turned and entered the tiny room she shared with Gu Yanchen, though in truth, it felt more like her solitary cell. Stationed year-round with his military unit, he rarely came home more than once a month. The room was cramped, holding only a bed and a chipped wooden wardrobe. Ignoring Zhang Cuihua's shrill curses outside, she yanked open the wardrobe. Inside, just 2 patched-up garments belonged to her. The rest were Gu Yanchen's impeccably pressed military uniforms, hanging in precise rows. Without glancing at the uniforms, she reached beneath them and dragged out a small wooden chest. The chest was locked, and she always kept the key on her person. Upon opening it, she found neither money nor valuable jewelry inside, just stacks of letters and several gleaming military medals. These were Gu Yanchen's treasures, the very honors that marked his rise from an ordinary soldier to regimental commander. Lin Wan carried the chest out. What's so funny? In the living room, Zhang Cuihua was still ranting angrily while Wang Li tried to placate her with soothing words. And Gu Yanjun wore an expression of visible irritation. Seeing Lin Wan emerge carrying a box, Zhang Cuihua assumed she was going to fetch the money and softened her tone. At least you know what's good for you. Hurry up and hand over the cash. Don't hold up Yanjun's important business. Lin Wan remained silent, walking to the doorway to change her shoes. Where do you think you're going? Zhang Cuihua sensed something amiss. Lin Wan finally turned to look at her, her gaze eerily calm. Sounds good, since you all think I'm joking. I'll go do something to make you believe me. She raised the wooden box in her hand. I'll go see the person you fear most, Political Commissar Zhao from the military district. I'll have a nice chat with him about how immature I've been, how I'm making a fuss about divorce. What? And while I'm at it, I'll hand these over to him. She opened the box, revealing the military medals inside. I'll tell him how Commander Gu's family has been tormenting me at home, leaving me no way to survive. These honors don't belong to the Gu family. Commander Gu doesn't deserve to wear them. You wouldn't dare. Zhang Cuihua's face drained of all color. Report to the political commissar, and surrender his military medals. If this gets out, Gu Yanchen's career will be ruined. Oppressing family members and failing to maintain domestic discipline are cardinal sins in the military, and Commissar Zhao is notoriously incorruptible. You think I won't do it? Lin Wan's voice was soft but carried the finality of mutual destruction. I've got nothing left to lose, just this worthless life. But Gu Yanchen, he's got everything to lose. Let's see what matters more, my miserable existence or Commander Gu's precious reputation. With that, she flung the door open and stormed out. Zhang Cuihua panicked completely. She rushed over and grabbed Lin Wan's arm desperately, her voice trembling. Don't be rash, let's talk this through. We're family. What are you doing? The mother-in-law, who had been domineering just moments ago, now wore a face full of terror and ingratiating smiles. Her ability to switch expressions was nothing short of astonishing. Gu Yanjun and Wang Li were stunned too. Never had they imagined that their usual pushover would transform into a raging lion today, threatening to sever their family's lifeline with a single word. Sis, we were wrong. We shouldn't have pressured you. Gu Yanjun chimed in with a forced smile. We don't want the money anymore. Just put that thing down, please. Lin Wan stared at them icily. She knew reasoning with these people was pointless. They only responded to threats. Let go, she said coldly. Zhang Cuihua didn't dare release her grip, clutching Lin Wan desperately as if afraid she'd bolt. Wan, sweetheart, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Don't take it out on Yanjun. He's still immature. We won't take a single cent. Just come inside. All right. Lin Wan remained motionless, simply staring at her in silence. That gaze sent chills down Zhang Cuihua's spine. She felt like prey cornered by a venomous snake, her entire body turning ice cold. This wasn't the Lin Wan she knew. Something was terribly off, as if she'd become a completely different person. I said, let go. Lin Wan's voice hardened, her eyes radiating glacial intensity. If you don't release me this instant, I'll scream. I'll bring the entire compound running to witness how the Gu family treats their daughter-in-law. Divorce. Those words became the final straw that broke Zhang Cuihua. Too. She jerked her hand away as if shocked by electricity. Don't wash your dirty linen in public, especially not in this crowded military compound where prying eyes are everywhere. Lin Wan averted her gaze without another glance at them. Clutching the box, she turned and retreated to her room, slamming the door shut with a bang before bolting it from inside. In the living room, Zhang Cuihua and the other two exchanged bewildered looks, their faces etched with post-traumatic shock and disbelief. This household seems to be on the brink of change. Gu Yanchen returned the following afternoon. An army green jeep pulled up at the compound entrance. A sharply dressed officer stepped out, ramrod straight posture, chiseled features radiating authority. His mere presence drew every eye in the courtyard. Gu Yanchen, the youngest regimental commander in the military district with boundless prospects, was every woman's fantasy in the compound and every man's professional benchmark. Yet today, an unshakable irritation lingered between his handsome brows. The moment yesterday's training ended, he received an urgent telegram from home, sent by his mother Zhang Suihua with blunt simplicity. Lin Wan wants divorce. Return immediately. Divorce. Gu Yanchen's first thought was utter absurdity. That woman, the one who'd been as docile as a kitten since their marriage, who'd never dare raise her voice, was asking for a divorce. He dismissed it as another one of her petty moods. Probably over some trivial domestic squabble. Exhausted by army duties piling up, he had zero patience for household drama. Pushing the door open, he immediately sensed the tension indoors. His mother Zhang Suihua sat sighing on a chair, while younger brother Gu Yanjun and his fiancée Wang Li wore matching grim expressions. "Mom, what's going on?" Gu Yanchen asked gravely, removing his cap and placing it on the table. Zhang Suihua burst into tears the moment she saw him, pointing at Lin Wan's closed door and wailing, "Yanchen, you're finally back. If you hadn't returned, that jinx would have torn this family apart. She wants a divorce. Over what?" Gu Yanchen frowned, impatience creeping into his voice. "What else could it be?" Zhang Suihua slapped her thigh dramatically. "Your brother's getting married, and I thought she should help out as his sister-in-law. But no, not a penny. Instead she threatens divorce. She's even clutching your military medals, saying she'll report you to the commissar and ruin your career. What sin did I commit to bring this troublemaker into our home?" Gu Yanchen's face darkened instantly. "Money again, and now she's threatening to report me to the political commissar. How dare she?" Rage surged from the depths of his heart as he felt his authority challenged like never before. He detested nothing more than women resorting to such underhanded tactics to blackmail him. He strode to Lin Wan's door and raised his fist to pound on it. "Lin Wan, get out here." But before his hand could land, the door swung open from within. Lin Wan stood in the doorway, silently watching him. She wore a faded old shirt, her frame gaunter than he remembered. Her pale face showed little color, save for those piercing eyes, clear as moonlit water, calm as an unfathomable ancient pool. No tears, no hysterics, not even a trace of the resentment or wounded pride he'd anticipated. The reprimand Gu Yanchen had rehearsed lodged in his throat like a stone. The Lin Wan before him now, head held steady, gaze unwavering, bore no resemblance to the timid wife who used to shrink from his sight. "You're back," Lin Wan said flatly, her tone as indifferent as if she were addressing a stranger. "Had enough drama." Gu Yanchen's voice turned icy as he regained composure. "Divorce me, who gave you the nerve?" He loomed over her with military-grade intimidation, expecting her to crumble instantly as she always did, but Lin Wan merely lifted her eyelids to glance at him. She then turned and picked up a sheet of paper from the table, handing it to him. The page bore several lines of elegant handwriting, headed by 3 bold characters, "Divorce application." The contents were straightforward. Lin Wan voluntarily sought dissolution of marriage with Gu Yanchen, requesting nothing from the Gu family and leaving with only her personal belongings. At the signature line, Lin Wan's name stood completed, accompanied by a glaring crimson thumbprint. "My courage comes from within," Lin Wan said calmly, meeting his stunned gaze. "Commander Gu, sign the papers." "You're asking me to sign?" Gu Yanchen could scarcely believe his ears. Staring at the unmistakably clear divorce petition before him, he felt fury boiling in his veins. He'd anticipated Lin Wan might make a scene, but imagined tears, hysterics, perhaps even threats of self-harm. Never in his wildest dreams had he imagined she could remain so composed, so detached, as if handling some impersonal bureaucratic matter. She'd even prepared the divorce papers in advance. "Lin Wan, do you realize what you're doing?" He seized her wrist with bone-crushing force. "Take it back, and I'll pretend none of this ever happened." A sharp pain shot through her wrist. Lin Wan's brows twitched almost imperceptibly, yet she made no attempt to pull away, merely lifting her gaze to meet his. "I know exactly what I'm doing, Commander Gu." Her voice remained eerily calm. "The real question is, do you and your family understand your own actions?" She wrenched her hand free and thrust her slender wrist before his eyes, the angry red mark glaring accusingly against her pale skin. 2 years I've been your wife, and every penny of your stipend beyond bare survival went to your mother and brother. Look at my patched clothes. When your mother gave our last wheat bun to your growing brother, did I ever protest? I've worn rags for 2 years to save fabric, washed your family's laundry in icy water till my hands turned purple, only to be called dramatic. Did you know any of this, Regimental Commander Gu? Lin Wan's quiet voice fell like hammer blows, each strike reverberating through Gu Yanshen's chest. He wasn't completely oblivious to these matters, he simply dismissed them as trivial, his mother's domineering ways, his younger brother's immaturity, he was aware of it all. Yet he expected Lin Wan, as his wife, to endure silently and consider the bigger picture. These are just minor issues. Minor issues. Lin Wan cut him off with a sudden laugh, her voice dripping with bitter irony. What's trivial to you is death by 1,000 cuts for me, Gu Yanchen. I'm not some slave your family purchased. I'm human. I feel pain too. She drew a deep breath, her gaze turning icy and resolute once more. I can't live like this anymore. Let's get divorced. Wait. Gu Yanchen's heart inexplicably clenched, staring at her pallid face and hollow eyes. He realized for the first time that he might never have truly known this woman. Just then, Lin Wan abruptly shifted gears, dropping a bombshell he'd never anticipated. Gu Yanchen, did you really think I was desperate to marry you? What makes you think the Gu family is such a prize? A frosty smirk curled at the corner of her lips. If it weren't for my father saving yours on Changbai Mountain, losing an eye and a leg to that black bear, do you really think your Gu family would have been worthy of marrying me? Gu Yanchen stiffened violently, pupils contracting sharply. What did you say? About his father's past? He only knew it involved severe injuries during a mission. The specifics had never been mentioned. Your father owes mine a life debt. The Gu family owes the Lins an unpayable favor. Lin Wan's voice rose sharply, thick with years of suppressed resentment. When our families arranged this marriage, your clan promised to treat me well. And how have you kept that promise? Working me like a beast of burden, squeezing me dry. This divorce is happening. She jabbed a finger at the dissolution papers, enunciating each word, sign or don't, it makes no difference. Though my father's crippled, his old war comrades still hold influence. I'll stand at the military compound gates and broadcast exactly how your father betrayed his savior, how your mother abused a war hero's daughter. Let's see what matters more, Gu Yanchen's precious career, or the Gu family's precious reputation. Gu Yanchen stood frozen, staring into Lin Wan's eyes blazing with fury. He felt genuine fear for the first time. He realized she wasn't bluffing. She was dead serious about bringing down the Gu family, even if it meant mutual destruction. As Gu Yanchen and Lin Wan stood locked in confrontation inside the room, Zhang Suihua outside could no longer contain herself. She strained her ears for a long while, catching only muffled arguments, nothing like Lin Wan's previous hysterical outbursts. Her heart pounded with unease, fearing her son couldn't control his deranged wife. No, I must check on them, Zhang Suihua declared, reaching for the door. Wang Li swiftly pulled her back. Auntie, don't, Brother Yanchen's there, he'll handle it. Barging in now would only pour oil on the fire. Wang Li had her own agenda. She secretly relished the growing rift between Lin Wan and the Gu family. That wretched woman, clinging to her status as the eldest Gu daughter-in-law and regimental commander's wife, a barren country bumpkin, how dare she? If only Wang Li could marry Gu Yanjun and later scheme to oust Lin Wan, then Yanchen would. She was lost in pleasant thoughts when the door suddenly swung open. Gu Yanchen stormed out with a dark expression, followed by Lin Wan whose face betrayed no emotion. Yanchen, what happened? Did she admit her mistake? Zhang Suihua hurried forward to meet them. Gu Yanchen remained silent, merely fixing his mother with an inscrutable gaze, a look laced with scrutiny, suspicion, and a barely perceptible chill. Without a word, he walked straight to the telephone, picked up the receiver, and dialed a number. The call connected almost immediately. Dad. Gu Yanchen's voice sounded hoarse. I need to ask you something. Back when you were on that mission in Changbai Mountain, was there a comrade named Lin who saved your life? A long silence stretched on the other end of the line. The air in the living room seemed to freeze. Zhang Suihua's face turned deathly pale in an instant. How could she have forgotten this? The marriage arrangement between the Gu and Lin families had indeed been made because the old man owed Lin family a life-saving debt. But with the Lins living hundreds of miles away in the countryside and the old man permanently confined to the sanatorium, out of sight, out of mind, she'd never taken it seriously. In her view, some country bumpkin like Lin Wan should consider herself lucky to marry her promising son. What gratitude was there to speak of? Yet she never expected that tight-lipped Lin Wan would actually bring this matter to light. On the other end of the line, Gu Yanchen's father, the elderly Commander Gu, finally spoke with a weary voice. Yes, that did happen. Why bring this up now? Did he injure his eyes and legs saving you? Gu Yanchen pressed, Hearing the confirmation, Gu Yanchen felt as if a boulder were crushing his chest, leaving him breathless. He hung up, turned around, and fixed Zhang Suihua with a gaze sharp as a blade. 3. Mom, is this true? Zhang Suihua avoided eye contact and stammered, That's all ancient history. Besides, didn't our Yanchen marrying her count as repaying the debt? What more could she possibly want? Repaying the debt? Gu Yanchen laughed bitterly in anger, making her wear the same clothes for 2 years, pocketing all her allowances for your son, forcing her to wash clothes in freezing water. This is what you call repaying a debt. Each word struck Zhang Suihua's face like a stinging slap. She never expected Lin Wan would actually tell Gu Yanchen about all these matters. I was doing what's best for our family, to ensure your brother could get married smoothly. Zhang Suihua continued making excuses. Enough. Gu Yanchen's furious roar made the entire room reverberate. He had never spoken to his mother with such severity before. Zhang Suihua, Gu Yanjun, and Wang Li all instinctively shrank back in fear, yet Lin Wan, the mastermind behind it all, remained an outsider throughout. She stood with arms crossed, watching coldly as this 2-decade-delayed family drama unfolded. She held no illusions that Gu Yanchen would stand up for her. In her past life, she'd pinned her hopes on this man only to lose everything. This time, she trusted only herself. Let them make a scene, the bigger, the better. Tear off the Gu family's veneer of respectability once and for all. Sure enough, the commotion soon drew neighbors to Gu Yanchen's roaring. Nosy military wives clustered at the Gus doorway, whispering behind cupped hands, "What's going on? Are the regiment Commander Gu's family quarreling? I heard Commander Gu's wife wants a divorce." Seriously, giving up being a perfectly good regimental commander's wife for divorce. Just then, Lin Wan stepped out. She didn't cry or make a scene, just offered the neighbors at the door a weak smile, more pitiful than tears. "Aunties, sisters, sorry you had to see this mess." Her voice was hoarse. "It's my fault. My useless body can't work the fields or bear children, living off Yanchen's stipend, burdening the family. I don't deserve to stay with the Gus." As she spoke, she covered her mouth with a handkerchief and broke into violent coughs, her frail shoulders trembling uncontrollably as if she might collapse any second. Her words, paired with that sickly appearance, packed a devastating punch. The military wives who'd initially thought her ungrateful instantly softened their gazes with pity, recalling Zhang Suihua's usual behavior and Lin Wan's endless piles of laundry. The truth dawned on everyone. This was no daughter-in-law, she was basically an unpaid maid. In the crowd, Sister Sun, the wife of political commissar Zhao from the military district, furrowed her brows. Known for her warm heart, she couldn't stand to see such injustice. She stepped forward and steadied the swaying Lin Wan. "Shaolin, if you've been wronged, tell Sister Sun. I'll make sure justice is served." This was exactly the reaction Lin Wan had hoped for. Leaning against Sister Sun, tears finally spilled from her eyes, not for herself, but for Gu Yanchen. "Sister Sun, don't blame them. It's my fault towards Yanchen. I'm not worthy of him. I just want to leave, far away, so I won't burden him anymore." Her strategic retreat and pitiful demeanor instantly turned the entire Gu family into public enemies. Inside the room, Gu Yanchen burned with shame as he overheard the gossip and Lin Wan's words about being unworthy of him. The Gu family scandal spread like wildfire through the military compound in less than half a day. There are many versions circulating, but the gist remains the same. The Gu family treated their rural daughter-in-law like dirt, working her to the bone until her health deteriorated and she couldn't conceive. Now they're trying to drive her out. The real bombshell, her father was old Commander Gu's lifesaver, biting the hand that feeds you. Overnight, the Gu household became the laughingstock of the entire compound. Whenever Zhang Suihua stepped outside, she'd get dagger-eyed stares and hushed curses behind her back. Fuming, she smashed several bowls at home but dared not confront Lin Wan again. Gu Yanchen found himself in even hotter water. Political commissar Zhao summoned him personally. Though nothing was stated explicitly, the underlying message was crystal clear, a stern warning to resolve domestic issues properly and avoid tarnishing the military's reputation. This marked the first time in his military career he'd been called in over personal matters, an absolute humiliation. He returned home to chaos. His mother wept, his brother complained, while Wang Li fanned the flames nearby. Yet the woman who'd stirred up this storm remained locked in her room, utterly detached from the turmoil outside. Gu Yanchen tugged irritably at his collar, feeling genuine disgust toward his family for the very first time. He wanted to talk to Lin Wan, to make her stop making trouble, but he halted at her doorstep. What was there to say? Admit his mistakes? His pride wouldn't allow it. Throw his weight around as the regiment leader? He knew it was pointless now. That woman wasn't the same Lin Wan who used to tremble at his glare. While the Gu household was in utter chaos, Lin Wan sat quietly in her room, meticulously plotting her future. She knew divorce wouldn't happen overnight, especially for military marriages in these times, which enjoyed special protection. If she wanted to leave, she'd need airtight preparations. First came the money. All she had were a few yuan secretly stashed away, not even enough for a train ticket back to her hometown. She lay in bed with her eyes closed, thoughts racing through her mind. In her previous life, she'd died in the 21st century, though she'd lived in poverty. Those decades of experience weren't wasted. She knew exactly which items from this era would become priceless treasures in the future. Stamps. Her eyes flew open. She remembered clearly, this very year, the nation would issue the whole country as red stamp series, but due to cartographic errors, they'd be recalled and destroyed almost immediately, making surviving specimens extremely rare. In later years, a single pristine large red stamp could fetch tens of millions at auction. Of course, she couldn't get her hands on those rare gems, but she remembered how many ordinary stamps issued in the 1970s, especially the numbered T-series commemoratives, would multiply in value hundreds or even thousands of times over the coming decades. He froze. In these early days of stamp collecting's popularity, most people completely underestimated its potential worth. A plan instantly formed in her mind. At dawn the next day, while the Gu family still slept, Lin Wan slipped out unnoticed. She went straight to Beijing's largest philatelic market without detours, with her last few dollars. She bypassed the flashy popular stamps and deliberately sought out the overlooked T-series stamps with plain designs, particularly those featuring industrial construction and design agricultural themes. Remembering their tremendous future appreciation potential, the elderly stamp vendor watched this young girl picking through junk stock and kindly advised, "Why bother with these, miss? They're neither pretty nor popular. See those new Barefoot Doctor stamps over there, much brighter colors." Lin Wan simply smiled and stood by her choice. She spent every cent she had on a modest stack of unremarkable stamps, tucking them carefully inside her coat. This was her first pot of gold, the starting point of her new life. Clutching these treasures, Lin Wan didn't head straight home. Instead, she turned into a secluded alley where an inconspicuous antique shop stood at its far end. She recalled Gu Yanchen mentioning in their past life that a discharged comrade had opened a shop nearby, catering to his father's passion for collecting vintage items. This was precisely the person she sought. As she pushed the door open, a middle-aged man dozing off jerked his head up and froze momentarily at the sight of her. "Miss, here to buy something." Lin Wan shook her head and produced a neatly folded letter from her coat, handing it over. "Sir, I'm not shopping. I'm looking for Zhou Jiafeng, Comrade Gu Yanchen's wartime brother-in-arms. This letter's from Gu, would you kindly pass it along?" She had forged Gu Yanchen's handwriting to write this letter last night. The message was straightforward, claiming financial strain and asking Zhou Jiafeng to help appraise some stamps she wanted to sell. Her gamble was that Zhou wouldn't refuse a letter from his comrade-in-arms. The middle-aged man, Zhou Jiafeng himself, took the letter skeptically, scanning its contents before eyeing Lin Wan. The moment he saw the stamp inventory listed, his previously indifferent gaze sharpened instantly. "You've got these stamps." His voice trembled with barely contained excitement. Lin Wan nodded, pulling out a small stack of stamps from her pocket. Zhou Jiafeng took the stamps, putting on his reading glasses to examine each one meticulously. The more he looked, the more his hands shook. Perfect match, the plate numbers, perforations, ink, all genuine. He looked up eagerly. "Miss, where on earth did you get these?" Lin Wan said calmly, "My husband gave it to me." Zhou Jiafeng took a deep breath, realizing he'd met a true connoisseur. Pointing at one stamp, he said, "This T8 issue had limited circulation, rarely seen nowadays. What price were you thinking?" "I'm no expert on market prices." Lin Wan played the clueless housewife perfectly. "Uncle Zhou, just offer what you think is fair. I trust Yanchen's comrade-in-arms." Her words simultaneously flattered him while putting the ball firmly in his court. Zhou Jiafeng looked at her and nodded approvingly in his heart. This girl was something else. After a moment's hesitation, he held up 5 fingers. $50, miss, that's already the highest offer. $50. In an era when the average worker earned merely $20 or $30 a month, this was an absolute fortune. Lin Wan's heart pounded wildly, though her expression remained unreadable. She knew Zhou Jiafeng had taken the lion's share at this price, but for her current situation, it was enough. "All right, we'll do as Uncle Zhou suggests." The deal was done. Lin Wan clutched the 50 yuan tightly in her hand before turning to leave the second-hand shop. No sooner had she left than Zhou Jiafeng locked the shop door and rushed excitedly into the backyard, shouting, "Dad, Dad, come see what treasure I've got." Meanwhile, Lin Wan wasn't in any hurry to head home with her small fortune. She ducked into the supply cooperative, bought a pound of meat, several pounds of flour, and, for the first time ever, treated herself to a length of dacron fabric to make a new dress. As she returned to the Gu household laden with packages, she bumped right into Gu Yanjun, who was about to head out. Gu Yanjun's eyes nearly popped out of his head when he saw what she was carrying: meat, white flour, and dacron fabric. He exclaimed incredulously, "Lin Wan, where'd you get the money? Did you secretly stash away my brother's military allowance?" Shouting accusations. He made a grab for the packages in Lin Wan's hands. In her past life, anything of value she possessed would inevitably be snatched away by Gu Yanjun under some pretext, but this time, Lin Wan simply sidestepped, leaving him grasping at air. "What business is it of yours how I spend my money?" She glared at him icily. "Your money, that's my brother's money, and my brother's money belongs to our family," Gu Yanjun bellowed unreasonably. Lunging at her again, he arrogantly dismissed Lin Wan, relying solely on his brute strength as a man. Just as his hand was about to grab Lin Wan, an even more powerful hand shot out from the side, clamping down on his wrist like a vice. A voice dripping with icy fury cut through the air. Both Gu Yanjun and Lin Wan turned simultaneously. Gu Yanchen stood silently at the doorway, his handsome face darkening with barely contained fury. "Brother." Gu Yanjun froze, wincing at the sharp pain shooting through his wrist. "What are you doing? You're hurting me." Gu Yanchen tightened his grip instead, his gaze cutting into Yanjun like a blade. "I'm asking you, what were you trying to do? Steal from your sister-in-law?" Yanjun faltered under his stare but doubled down defiantly. "Steal? I was just looking. How could a woman who doesn't earn afford all this meat and fabric? You must have given her the money. You're playing favorites." "Brother, not a penny for my wedding. Yet you let her squander fortunes." "Me?" Gu Yanchen scoffed coldly, shaking off his hand. "My stipend hasn't even come through this month. What could I possibly give her?" He turned to Lin Wan, his gaze lingering on the meat and fabric in her hands with unreadable complexity. He was dying to know, just where did she get the money? Meeting his gaze steadily, Lin Wan replied with calm defiance, "This is my money. How I got it is none of your concern." With that, she stepped around them and headed straight for the kitchen. Her icy indifference left Gu Yanchen feeling as though something heavy was lodged in his chest, oppressive and suffocating. There was a time when her eyes had brimmed with adoration and dependence whenever she looked at him. When had that warmth been replaced by this bone-chilling distance? "Lin Wan," Gu Yanjun called out stubbornly, unwilling to let her walk away. "Stay right where you are," Gu Yanchen barked, jabbing a finger at his younger brother's face with unprecedented fury and disappointment. "Gu Yanjun, you're 20 years old, not 2. All you do is laze around leeching money off this family. Have you no shame? Starting today, neither you nor your mother are to touch a single cent of Lin Wan's money, understood?" He then turned his warning-laden gaze toward his mother Zhang Tsuehua and Wang Li standing nearby. Zhang Tsuehua shrank under her son's glare, too intimidated to speak. Wang Li kept her head bowed even lower, terrified of drawing attention to herself. This marked Gu Yanchen's first explicit act of standing up for Lin Wan within their household. In her past life, Lin Wan would have been moved to tears hearing these words, feeling all her grievances were finally worth it. But now, kneading dough in the kitchen, Lin Wan merely curled her lips in bitter amusement at the quarreling outside. She'd long outgrown needing such things. Gu Yanchen's defense earned him not even a glance of gratitude from Lin Wan. For dinner, Lin Wan prepared pork and cabbage dumplings. The plump white dumplings bobbed in the boiling pot, filling the entire house with their savory aroma. Gu Yanjun and Zhang Tsuehua were practically drooling, but under Gu Yanchen's stormy glare, neither dared to be the first to pick up their chopsticks. Lin Wan served herself a bowl and began eating without sparing anyone a glance. She savored each bite slowly, relishing the dumplings as if they were the most exquisite delicacy in the world. It had been so very long since she'd last enjoyed a proper meal like this. Gu Yanchen gazed at her with mixed emotions. He picked up a dumpling and took a bite. The familiar taste now felt strangely foreign. It suddenly struck him that in 2 years of marriage, he'd never truly watched her eat. The meal concluded in an unsettling silence. That evening, Gu Yanchen did something unprecedented. He stayed home instead of returning to base. When he entered the room, Lin Wan had already laid out bedding on the floor, preparing to sleep there. "What are you doing?" Gu Yanchen frowned. "We're getting divorced soon. Separate beds are only natural," Lin Wan stated matter-of-factly. 5. "I never agreed to divorce." Gu Yanchen's voice suddenly rose sharply. He strode forward, snatched the quilt from the floor, and flung it onto the bed. Sleep here. Lin Wan remained motionless, her gaze icy as she spoke. Regimental Commander Gu, don't you find it disgraceful to force yourself upon a woman who's about to become your ex-wife? The words ex-wife pierced Gu Yanshen's heart like needles. He took a deep breath, suppressing his irritation as his tone softened. Lin Wan, let's talk. I know Mom and Yanjun were wrong. I apologize on their behalf. I neglected you before. But that won't happen again. Let's not divorce. Can't we just make this work? He assumed that Lin Wan would meet him halfway, given how a man of his rank had humbled himself to apologize. Yet Lin Wan simply shook her head. Gu Yanchen, it's too late. Her eyes held neither love nor hatred, just hollow emptiness. Broken mirrors can't be mended. My heart, it's already dead. Don't go. Wan Wan. Panic crept into Gu Yanchen's voice as he grasped her shoulders, an unconscious plea slipping through. Give me one more chance. We'll move out, leave my family behind, start fresh. Lin Wan almost laughed. In her past life, she'd clung to that same fantasy before dying. How wonderful it would be to start over. But now that the opportunity had truly arrived, she found nothing but bitter irony in it. Let go. She had no patience left for his nonsense. This divorce is happening, whether you agree or not. Keep harassing me, and I swear I'll take this straight to the military district. Threats. Always these brazen threats. Gu Yanchen's face darkened instantly. Every shred of patience and the faintest hint of remorse he'd felt evaporated under her relentless defiance. He abruptly released his grip, stepping back with eyes turning icy again. Fine, just perfect, he hissed through clenched teeth. Lin Wan, don't you dare regret this. Wang Li's scheme backfired. She'd assumed Lin Wan's divorce drama would let her swoop in, if not replace her outright. At least hasten Gu Yanjun's marriage plans. To her surprise, Lin Wan, whom she'd taken for an easy pushover, suddenly grew a spine. Not only did Lin refuse to leave, she threw the entire Gu household into chaos. Even Zhang Xuehua became too preoccupied to focus on arranging her marriage to Gu Yanjun. What stung even more was noticing the change in Gu Yanchen's gaze when he looked at Lin Wan. Gone was his usual indifference and impatience. Instead, his eyes held an indecipherable mix of emotions, anger, bewilderment, and even a trace of nervousness. A man only gets nervous around a woman when she truly matters to him. This revelation plunged Wang Li into unprecedented crisis. She couldn't wait any longer. She had to devise a way to drive Lin Wan completely out of the Gu household and make Gu Yanchen utterly despise her. A vicious scheme began taking shape in her mind. Gu Yanchen treasured his set of comprehensive mirror for aid in government above all else, a graduation gift from his military academy instructor that he guarded jealously, never permitting anyone to touch it. This very book was Wang Li's target. That afternoon, seizing the opportunity while the house was empty, Lin Wan had gone shopping at the supply cooperative. Gu Yanchen was at the military base, and Zhang Xuehua with Gu Yanjun were visiting neighbors. Wang Li sneaked into Gu Yanchen and Lin Wan's bedroom. She located the books that Gu Yanchen kept on the top shelf, pulled out one volume, flipped to the middle, then produced a small ink bottle from her pocket. Taking a deep breath, she viciously splashed its contents across the pages. The jet black ink instantly soaked through dozens of pages, transforming the neat handwriting into grotesque stains. After completing everything, she carefully returned the book to its original place, wiped away any possible traces, and retreated to her room as if nothing had happened. She waited for Gu Yanchen to return, discover his most treasured book destroyed, and unleash his full fury upon Lin Wan. As the last person who had entered the study, Lin Wan had no way to defend herself. At dusk, Gu Yanchen returned. He still seemed upset about yesterday's incident, storming in with a dark expression. Wang Li's heart leaped to her throat as she stole furtive glances at Gu Yanchen's movements from the corner of her eye. Gu Yanchen automatically headed to the study for his usual reading session, but his face darkened the moment his eyes swept across the bookshelf. He strode over, yanked out the ink-stained book, and his entire demeanor turned terrifying when confronted with the glaring blotch defacing its pages. Who did this? A furious roar echoed through the entire house. Another stretch of silence followed. Zhang Xuehua and Gu Yanjun rushed over at the sound, startled by the book in Gu Yanchen's hands. As you command. Good heavens, what happened here? Zhang Xuehua exclaimed in shock. Wang Li pretended to have just noticed the damage and let out an exaggerated gasp. Then she casually remarked, "This afternoon, I think I saw sister-in-law cleaning the study. Could she have accidentally?" With that single remark, she successfully redirected all suspicion toward Lin Wan, who had just returned home. Lin Wan, Zhang Xuehua exploded like a firecracker. charging forward to jab her finger accusingly. You good-for-nothing woman, did you do this on purpose? Do you have any idea how important this book is to Yanchen? What kind of evil scheme are you plotting by destroying it? Gu Yanjun added fuel to the fire. Brother, it's definitely her. She's trying to get back at us, at you. All eyes were on Lin Wan, waiting for her to defend herself or burst into frightened tears as she'd done before. Gu Yanchen glared at her with smoldering fury and disappointment. His treasured book lay ruined, and every shred of evidence pointed to this woman who was desperate to divorce him. He'd already convinced himself this was her twisted revenge, yet Lin Wan's reaction defied everyone's expectations once more. She offered no defense, shed no tears, didn't even show the slightest trace of panic. She merely glanced at the book indifferently before lifting her gaze to meet Gu Yanchen's murderous stare, asking calmly, "See, this is how I've been living. Do you believe them, or me?" Those simple words struck Gu Yanchen's heart like a sledgehammer. Who could he possibly trust? His habitual liar of a mother who always played favorites, his good-for-nothing, lazy brother who never lifted a finger to learn, or his seemingly delicate but actually scheming sister-in-law? Or should he trust her, his wife, whom he'd just witnessed being bullied by his entire family, nearly having her belongings snatched by his own brother? For the first time, doubt began to creep into his heart. Just as he hesitated, Lin Wan suddenly smiled. "Never mind, who you believe doesn't matter anymore." She turned around, walked to the door, and called out, "Xiaohu, come in." At that moment, a sturdy boy peeked in from outside. It was Xiaohu, the grandson of their neighbor Commissar Zhao. "Xiaohu, tell Uncle Gu who you saw entering this room this afternoon," Lin Wan asked gently, pointing to the study. Xiaohu blinked his big eyes and piped up, "I saw Auntie Wang Li. She sneaked in and stayed for quite a while before coming out." The revelation sent shockwaves through the room. Wang Li's face turned deathly pale in an instant. Never in her wildest dreams did she expect a child to witness her tampering. And that bitch Lin Wan actually had contingency plans all along. You're lying," Wang Li shrieked. "I did no such thing. How dare a brat like you spread such nonsense?" "I'm not lying." Xiaohu flinched at her ferocious glare but stood his ground. "I saw it with my own eyes. You even pulled a little bottle from your pocket." Those two words, "little bottle," became the final straw that broke Wang Li. Gu Yanchen's gaze sharpened like a hawk's as he advanced step by step toward Wang Li, his voice icy cold. "Where's the bottle? Hand it over." Wang Li trembled in fear, instinctively clutching her pocket. Done with her excuses, Gu Yanchen reached straight into her pocket and pulled out the empty ink bottle she hadn't had time to discard. The evidence was irrefutable. A resounding slap landed hard across Wang Li's face. The blow came from Zhang Xuehua, who was trembling with rage. "You little witch, how dare you scheme against our family? What curse has befallen the Gu household?" Never could she have imagined that the perfect daughter-in-law she'd been so eager to welcome would turn out to be such a venomous ingrate. Wang Li stood stunned, clutching her face, too shocked even to cry. Gu Yanjun froze, staring at his fiancée whom he defended moments ago, his own face burning with shame. Gu Yanchen didn't spare Wang Li another glance. His gaze swept past the chaos, settling on the woman who'd remained unshaken throughout. She stood motionless like a detached observer, her eyes devoid of triumph or vindication, only an impenetrable chill, as if none of this concerned her in the slightest. At that moment, Gu Yanchen felt an invisible hand clench his heart so violently he could scarcely breathe. With Wang Li's schemes exposed, her fate was all too predictable. The Gu family would never tolerate such a venomous daughter-in-law. Gu Yanchen immediately severed Gu Yanjun's ties with her and had her thrown out. Zhang Xuehua didn't dare defend her this time. Wang Li had crossed the line by scheming against her most prized eldest son. The wedding ended in complete farce. The Gu family became the laughingstock of the entire compound. This incident brought Gu Yanchen's guilt toward Lin Wan to its peak. He finally realized how blind and foolish he'd been, allowing his wife to endure such humiliation in that toxic environment. He began clumsily trying to win her favor. He'd leave work early to bring her favorite braised pork from the army canteen. He'd hand over his entire allowance without keeping a penny. He'd even pick up the broom unprompted to clean their home. These were his clumsy attempts at making amends, but Lin Wan turned a blind eye to it all. She wouldn't touch a bite of the braised pork he brought home, immediately giving it to the neighbor's kids instead. The money he gave her remained untouched in the drawer. When he cleaned the house, she'd silently wait in the yard until he finished. With silent determination, she rejected every gesture of kindness from him. Her indifference stood like an impenetrable wall, rendering all his efforts futile and leaving him overwhelmed with helplessness and defeat. "Lin Wan, what exactly do you want from me?" Gu Yanchen finally broke the silence late at night. His voice hoarse with exhaustion as he watched his wife settle onto the floor mattress yet again. Lin Wan opened her eyes, in the darkness. Her pupils burned with unsettling intensity. Sign the divorce papers, the same demand, again. No matter what he did, those two syllables remained her sole obsession. Divorce. Gu Yanchen's heart sank to the depths of despair. As for Lin Wan, she had no more time to waste with him. With the 50 yuan she'd earned selling stamps and leveraging Zhou Jiefeng's connections, she secured some hard-to-come-by Dacron fabric coupons and industrial vouchers. Then she boarded a southbound train. She was headed to Shenzhen. She remembered clearly. In 1977, the national college entrance exams would be reinstated. This had been her greatest regret in her past life. In this lifetime, she wouldn't miss the chance again. She needed money and a stable environment to prepare for the exams. And in this era, the land of greatest opportunity lay in that rising southern city. 6. She left without a sound, leaving only a note and the signed divorce papers behind. The note read, Gu Yanchen, I'm leaving. I've submitted the divorce application to the authorities. From now on, we owe each other nothing. When Gu Yanchen returned from his week-long intensive training to an empty home and saw that note on the table, his world spun out of control. She was really gone. No tears, no drama, just vanished cleanly from his life like she'd never existed. He tore out of the house like a madman, rushing to train stations, bus terminals, searching and asking everywhere. But in 1970s China's sea of humanity, finding one person was like searching for a needle in a haystack. For the first time, he tasted the bitterness of panic and heart-wrenching agony. Returning home, he stared at the room still imprinted with traces of her existence, breathing in the faint lingering scent of soapberries that clung to the air. This battle-hardened soldier who'd never flinched at bloodshed found his eyes stinging for the first time. Picking up the divorce papers, his trembling fingers hovered over Lin Wan's delicate yet resolute signature. He reached to tear them apart, but his hands shook beyond control. Wan, he murmured hoarsely, voice thick with bottomless regret and anguish. Don't go, come back. Only then did he realize, the woman he'd always taken for granted had unknowingly become part of his very flesh and blood. Without her, his world became a barren wasteland. Commander, Guard Shelley rushed in, panic written across his face. Political Commissar Zhao demands your immediate presence in his office. Your wife Comrade Lin Wan has. She submitted an appeal to the Military Discipline Committee. Gu Yanchen jerked his head up, pupils dilating violently. Appeal documents. She didn't just want a divorce, she was determined to publicly shame him and drag the entire Gu family through the mud. The atmosphere in the Military District Discipline Committee office was so tense you could cut it with a knife. Political Commissar Zhao sat rigidly at the head of the table, his face ashen. Several disciplinary committee staff members flanked him, holding the slim dossier Lin Wan had submitted. The account was brief, yet every word bled with anguish, without emotional accusations. She calmly recounted facts, how her mother-in-law demanded allowances, how her brother-in-law lived in idleness during her 2-year marriage to the Gu family, and how she wore the same clothes for years and developed chronic illness from washing in icy water to save money. Attached was a medical diagnosis, severe malnutrition and advanced rheumatism from prolonged exposure to cold water. The most devastating part came last. She mentioned how her father had been disabled while saving the old Commander Gu. The daughter of his savior was living a life worse than a servant's in the Gu household, ungrateful wretches mistreating a martyr's family. These two damning accusations could crush anyone, let alone Gu Yanchen, this promising young regiment commander. This was the scene that greeted Gu Yanchen when he arrived. Reporting, sir. He stood at the doorway with a crisp military salute. Though his voice trembled uncontrollably, Political Commissar Zhao glanced up at him, eyes brimming with disappointment, then slammed the documents onto the desk with a sharp crack. Gu Yanchen, see for yourself. Gu Yanchen approached and picked up the papers. With each passing line, his hand shook more violently and his face grew paler. He knew these things, yet didn't truly know them. He was aware of his mother's favoritism and his brother's worthlessness, but never realized Lin Wan's suffering had reached such depths. Malnutrition, severe rheumatism. She never breathed a word of it in his presence. She endured silently until her heart turned to ashes, then struck him and the Gu family with fatal resolve. Commissar, his lips parted, but cotton seemed lodged in his throat, rendering him speechless. Explanation. What could he possibly explain? Claiming ignorance. That's negligence. Admitting awareness but doing nothing. That's complicity. Comrade Gu Yanchen, Political Commissar Zhao slammed the table and stood up. You've utterly disappointed me. Our military officers must not only win battles but also set examples at home. If you can't even manage your own household, how can I trust you to command an entire regiment? This incident has caused severe damage. The Military District Party Committee has decided to suspend all your duties immediately. You're to return home for self-reflection. Only after resolving your domestic issues may you return to service. Suspended from duty. The 4 words exploded in Gu Yanchen's mind like a bolt from the blue. After over a decade of military service, rising from green recruit to regimental commander through blood, sweat and sacrifice, the army was his life. Now this incident threatened to reduce all his efforts to nothing. He staggered out of the office like a broken man. Though bathed in sunlight, his entire body felt frozen. He lost. And it was a complete disaster. He lost to the woman he'd been ignoring for 2 whole years. When Zhang Xuehua and Gu Yanjun saw his ashen face upon returning home, they were shocked. Upon learning Gu Yanchen had been suspended, all because of Lin Wan's appeal, Zhang Xuehua let out a wail and collapsed to the floor. That jinx, she's trying to destroy our entire family. Ignoring his mother's wails, Gu Yanchen shut himself in the room, the one that once belonged to him and Lin Wan. He stared at the empty space, where their divorce papers still lay on the table. Slowly walking over, he picked up the pen and signed his name with deliberate strokes, Gu Yanchen. As the final word dried on the page, a scalding teardrop crashed onto the paper. Blooming instantly, the man who'd bled without weeping finally tasted heartbreak the moment his pen touched the divorce papers. He knew she was gone forever. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Xincheng, Lin Wan stepped off the train. The southern air hung warm and humid, thick with the vibrant scent of vegetation and earth. She gazed at the dust-choked city brimming with endless possibilities before her, drawing a deep breath. In her pocket lay everything she owned. Her mind held blueprints for decades to come. Turning back, she glanced at the northern skyline, where her past lingered, and nightmares dwelled. Then she turned away without hesitation and strode into the surging crowd. Lin Wan's rebirth officially began at this very moment. Story 2. After Bai Yuiguang passed away, Gu Sun became mute. For years into our marriage, he remained distant and indifferent, never bothering about me, but later, I overheard his friends teasing him. President Gu, you must be suffocating, playing mute at home every day. With a cool voice, the supposedly mute Gu Sun replied, I'm not pretending to be mute. I just despise everything related to her. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the time before Bai Yuiguang's death. I pushed him towards Bai Yuiguang, yet, he trembled and asked me, why do you want to push me towards someone else? On Gu Sun's birthday, I prepared a birthday gift for him. I made a variety of delicious dishes, but after waiting for a long while, he was nowhere to be seen. The food turned cold. I found out from one of his friends that Gu Sun was at the Chenyun bar. Feeling desolate, I numbly headed there. Inside the private room, the atmosphere was lively with drinks flowing freely. Laughter and voices of men and women filled the room, all friends of Gu Sun. Just as I was about to push the door open, I slightly nudged it, and the voices inside became clearer. I heard one of Gu Sun's close friends joking, President Gu, you must be suffocating, playing mute at home every day. At that moment, a chill ran through me. Someone chimed in, exactly, when Sue is too domineering, I wouldn't want to live with her either. Son, how long do you plan on playing mute? It's been 4 years. I had hurried over, worried about Gu Sun's health, fearing the alcohol might harm him. My legs went weak, and I clenched my fists tightly, digging my nails into my palms to stifle my voice. Inside, the supposedly mute Gu Sun's voice was cold. I'm not pretending to be mute. I just despise everything related to her. He suddenly laughed mockingly. She's so foolish. She hasn't realized that I've been pretending to be mute for 4 years. Yes, son, you recovered a month after the car accident. And when Sue didn't notice at all, if it weren't for Xia Yunchun, you wouldn't have to settle for her. Let's not talk about when Sue today. It's your birthday. Gu Sun's face turned grim as he lifted his glass and drank. It was strange. From this distance, through the gap in the door, I could still see the redness in Gu Sun's eyes. It was truly ridiculous. Over these 4 years, I really thought that the shock had rendered Gu Sun mute for life. But I didn't care about that. So what if he couldn't speak? I could speak. So, I talked to him every day, trying to amuse him. I would talk about the day's events. I would voluntarily make soup for him, helping him maintain good health, hoping that one day, I might have a place in his heart. For years, even a stone should have warmed up by now. But there was one name I never dared to touch, Xia Yunchun, Gu Sun's Bai Yuiguang, the real owner of this bar. And someone I could never compare to. I closed the door. And the voices inside were instantly cut off. I couldn't hear the mockery anymore. My head spun dizzyingly. Someone behind me seemed to call out President Wen, but I was too overwhelmed to care. Staggering to the roadside, I shakily pulled out my phone from my pocket. My fingers trembled, my vision blurred. Suddenly, I realized my blood sugar was dropping. I took out a piece of candy and put it in my mouth. Finally, I managed to send a message to Gu-sun. Gu-sun, let's get a divorce, for his birthday. I gave him a gift, a divorce agreement. I didn't ask for much, just the villa we had lived in for 4 years. It was at that moment I finally realized with clarity that I could never measure up to someone deceased, neither in the past nor in the future. Suddenly, a bright light shone, and I saw a truck heading towards me. Behind me was a familiar yet strange voice, shouting my name, Wen-su. When I opened my eyes again, I was back 5 years earlier. None of it had happened yet. Gu-sun's cherished ex hadn't passed away, we hadn't married. I was overwhelmed with immense euphoria. At that time, I had just graduated, and Gu-sun's family was facing a crisis. His ex had gone abroad. In my previous life, I had resolutely quit a promising job for him, to join his company and help him build it from the ground up. Due to his constant hard work and irregular diet, he suffered from severe gastritis. I made different nutritious meals for him every day, at banquets. To get those corpulent executives to sign contracts, I feared that Gu-sun would drink too much and upset his stomach, so I often drank on his behalf, getting those executives drunk. Perhaps Gu-sun was truly moved by me then. When I was vomiting badly, he didn't show any disgust. Instead, he made me tea to sober up. After a long silence, he asked me, Wen-su, is it worth it, even drunk? I hadn't forgotten my affection for him. I smiled with eyes crescent. It's worth it. I like you the most, Gu-sun. But the emotions of that moment couldn't withstand the test of time and his longing for his ex. Later I realized, he truly wasn't worth it. This time, I wouldn't quit my job for him. My phone rang. It was Gu-sun. His voice sounded worn out. He asked, did you submit your resignation? I looked at the resignation letter in my hand. If I hadn't been reborn, I would have gone straight to the CEO's office to hand in my resignation letter. Then, despite the CEO's attempts to retain me, I would have decisively gone to a fledgling company. His ex would have been robbed and murdered abroad. Gu-sun would never recover, turning mute. In the end, I coerced and cajoled him into marrying me. I chuckled. Gu-sun, I just messaged your ex about your situation. She said she will come back. From now on, let her be with you. There was a long silence on the other end, probably furrowing his brow. He asked in a deep voice, what do you mean by this? Word by word, I replied, what I mean is, whoever wants to resign can resign. I am not quitting my job at a Fortune 500 company. He couldn't say more. I had already hung up the phone. The frustration in my chest dissipated a bit with those words. Suddenly, a familiar deep voice came from behind. He asked with a smile, do you like this job that much? I turned around, locking eyes with Shen Qinglan. His eyes twinkled with amusement. I remembered in my past life, there were many who kicked me when I was down. Many doubted my relationship with Gu-sun, but when I drank till my stomach bled, and still couldn't secure that contract, it was Shen Qinglan who spoke well of me. And only much later did I discover, originally, that executive had planned to collaborate with him. It was his suggestion that convinced the executive to sign the deal with me. Until my death in that previous life, I never had the chance to thank him. I couldn't help but my eyes slightly teared up, and I bowed deeply to him. Mr. Shen. Shen Qinglan said, although I don't know why you are thanking me, there's no need. Save such grand gestures for my funeral. I fell silent. You deserve to be single even after I'm gone. It started when I met Gu-sun in college. I've always liked him, but back then, his affection for Xia Yunchun was the talk of the school, stormy and widespread. Groups of people even set up a confession wall just to keep up with their relationship status. Unfortunately, they never ended up together. I thought I might have a chance. After graduation, I still lingered around Gu-sun. Every time his friends saw me, they would tease, oh, look, it's Sun's little tail again. She's not as pretty as Xia Yunchun. Why didn't you bring Xia Yunchun along? They never really saw me as a person, just someone to mock for fun at gatherings. When I got upset, Gu-sun just frowned. Don't make a scene. They didn't mean it. Some people, no matter what they do, just lose their rationality when it comes to love. I kept lowering my standards for him, but not anymore. I continued working at Shin Corporation, thinking that with Gu-sun's proud nature, he would never come looking for me. But one day after work, a familiar car stopped abruptly in front of me, nearly hitting my legs. The window rolled down, revealing Gu-sun's stern face. Frowning impatiently, he asked, Wen-xiu, what are you playing at? Was your resignation just a joke? Was everything you said about liking me and wanting to help me at the company all just a game? I smiled brightly. Yes, why don't you bite me, with such a good offer? I'd have to be kicked in the head by you to follow you into a startup. Gusun was stunned. Unable to comprehend my drastic change, a few seconds later, he scoffed, Wen Xiao, playing hard to get doesn't really suit you. Then suddenly, a hand landed on my waist, a distant yet steady voice came from above, when we have our wedding banquet, remember to bring your playing hard to get as a gift. It was Shen Qinglan. Gusun, not recognizing him, looked displeased. Wen Xiao, who is he? I coolly retorted. Gusun. And who are you to me? What right do you have to question me? Xia Yunchen is coming back to the country soon. You like her so much. I hope we can clear things up before she returns. I'm not interested in being friends with someone who used to like me. Maybe I had used this tactic when I was angry before. Gusun looked at me incredulously. He scoffed. Wen Xiao, you said you wanted to break it off with me last time, and you came back to me in less than 3 days. Are you trying the same trick again? I bet you won't last 7 days before you come back to apologize. I nodded. All right, then just wait. I resumed my peaceful life. As I hoped, Gusun did not disturb me. I heard that his old flame, Xia Yunchen, had returned, and he even went to pick her up. That's great. The tragedy of the past life didn't happen. Xia Yunchen wouldn't die, and I wouldn't marry Gusun. A few days later, Shen Qinglan suddenly approached me. There's a banquet on Wednesday. Would you be able to accompany me? 10 times the salary, paid daily. My eyes lit up, and I quickly agreed, bowing eagerly. This job is a piece of cake for me. Simply a piece of cake. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his eyes. At the banquet, I realized something was amiss. I couldn't take 2 steps without running into a friend of Gusun. Fortunately, Gusun hasn't made his comeback yet and hasn't become entangled with them. I had just come out of the restroom when I ran into Gusun head-on. His eyes were cold and stern. Barely concealing his smugness, Wen Su, it's only been 3 days, and you're already eager to admit your mistake to me. I exclaimed, what kind of service is this? How can you be so rude? His face turned as dark as the bottom of a pot. Suddenly, noticing the expensive gown I was wearing, he frowned. Are you sticking around just for the money? I looked at him with a gaze that said, who do you think you are? Why don't you tell me? Who do you think is more attractive, you or the money? There's no need to humiliate yourself. Perhaps he couldn't accept that someone who used to pursue him was now indifferent. Gusun said sternly, Wen Su, how much longer will you pretend? Although Yunchen has returned, I would welcome you back without holding grudges if you chose to return. You couldn't afford my monthly salary with all your wealth. What gives you the right to welcome me? Is it your shameless determination? Gone were the days of being love-struck. My intelligence has now taken the high ground. Gusun's expression hardened. He stepped forward, gripping my wrist tightly, his eyes intensely fixed on me. Wen Su, don't make me angry. Gusun, even dogs eat dog food now. Did you know? He didn't understand at first. Why the sudden shift in topic? What do you mean? I mean, if there's dog food, eat it properly. Don't go around eating someone else's crap. It's unhygienic and leaves a bad taste in your mouth, and it's unfair to Xia Yunchen. I smiled broadly, my grin radiant and defiant. No longer was I the meek and cautious person in his presence, and besides, if I were to fancy someone, it'd be someone handsome. How do you compare to our boss? I said all this with a hand on my hip, without taking a breath. A faint pain emanated from my wrist. It faded as I saw a sense of belief shatter in Gusun's eyes. Suddenly, a familiar deep voice sounded from behind, its tone warm and smiling. Wen Su, I see you do have some taste. That hand unceremoniously pulled mine from Gusun's, gently rubbing the red mark. Does it hurt? I looked up, somewhat startled, into Shen Qinglan's eyes, my defenses dropping slightly. I nodded subconsciously. He smirked, a cold glint in his eyes. If it hurts, hit back, and I'll raise your salary by 10,000. I rolled up my sleeves to reveal my biceps, like a mighty gorilla obeying a command. As you wish, master. Wen Su, Gusun didn't look very pleased. Shen Qinglan, on the other hand, appeared much more relaxed. Just as I was about to rush forward recklessly, he grabbed my wrist with one hand, chuckling, how could I actually let you hit someone? By then, a crowd had noticed the commotion. The group behind us, which included some of Gusun's friends who clearly weren't pleased to see me, had been watching for a while. One of them stepped forward. President Shen, let's prioritize harmony. There's no need to disrupt the peace over a woman. I didn't speak. After a moment, Shen Qinglan also remained silent. Everyone was watching him. I instinctively looked up. I heard his voice say, if he uses gender to pressure you, with me here, Why wouldn't you use financial power to pressure him? In my past life, a donkey must have kicked my brain with a whirlwind triple kick for me to have resigned. Right, President Shen. This is unnecessary. His gaze made me extremely uncomfortable. I suddenly remembered this man's character. Back when I was with Gusen in my past life, he often made inappropriate jokes about me. After I got angry, he would just smirk and raise an eyebrow. It's just a joke. Why are you so uptight? Gusen typed a message for me to read. Stop making a fuss. If you don't want to stay, just leave. In front of his girlfriend, I deliberately raised a smile and said, you know, he has a mole with hair on his left chest. I saw a bunch of his nude videos online recently. All eyes in the room turned to me. That guy has a girlfriend. How do I know such private details? In my previous life, I overheard them discussing it during a brothers gathering with Gusun, and moreover, this guy is unfaithful in relationships. The woman next to him turned pale with rage and slapped him across the face. You scumbag. I then looked at a few others in the crowd. Oh, and you, cheating on your brother with his girlfriend, and you, it seems like you secretly collaborated with your brother's rival, causing your brother to lose billions. They were stunned. No, how does this woman know everything? They were afraid I'd say even more. Mr. Shen, please, do me a favor and stop her from continuing, will you? Shen Qinglan laughed boldly and unrestrainedly. In Beijing North, my Shen family reigns supreme. How much is your face worth? Should I swipe my card and pay you enough? The room fell dead silent. That group of Gusen's friends from the previous life, all simultaneously cursed in their hearts. Why did he have to provoke that couple? Shen Qinglan really helped me out this time. Not only did he help me counter Gusun, but he also helped me regain my dignity in front of Gusun's future friends, with Shen Qinglan around. Gusun might not be able to rise again like he did in the previous life. I was satisfied, and after returning, I bowed to Shen Qinglan. Boss, I will never forget your great kindness and life-saving grace. He coughed lightly, his face blushing slightly. Cough. If you want to dedicate your life in return, I wouldn't mind. Meanwhile, I completed my sentence. I'll be your servant in the next life. He frowned. Why not in this lifetime? I calmly replied, because I owe a great debt. Are you unhappy? Should I kneel and kowtow 3 times to offer you my highest sincerity? That won't be necessary. Gusun has his pride. After that incident, he calmed down for a while. I happily worked at the company, where previously Shen Qinglan said that slapping someone would increase my salary by 10,000. Although I didn't get to slap anyone, he indeed gave me a raise. He said, consider it a reward for hearing all that gossip, as expected, without my help. And with Shen Qinglan's interference, many in the capital were wary of collaborating with Gusun. His fledgling company was in jeopardy, and I just heard that Xia Yunchun had left him. Gusun fell into a slump and didn't contact me. However, I received a call from Gusun's father. Su, why haven't you visited recently? Your aunt and I have been talking about you every day at home. Your aunt misses you so much she can't sleep well. She's been sick and bedridden lately. Often calling your name in the middle of the night. The moment I received the call, my heart was slightly moved. In my previous life, his parents were enough reason for me to stay with Gusun. His parents were very kind to me. Every time they saw Gusun being indifferent to me, they took turns scolding him, until later, when he became mute after being stimulated, his parents couldn't bear to scold him anymore. I clenched my fist tightly, my eyes moistening. In a hoarse voice, I said, Uncle, I'll visit you after I finish my work in a couple of days. Please take good care of your health. All right. Hearing the happy laughter on the other end, I quietly asked, Uncle, Gusun isn't at home, right? There was a second of silence on the line. He's not here. That rascal wouldn't dare to come. Su, just come over. Your uncle and aunt will always support you. Relieved by the confirmation, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I don't want to see Gusun. Nor do I want any contact with him. However, Gusun's parents were very kind to me in the past, and now his aunt is ill. If I don't visit, it would seem ungrateful. Lately, I've been thinking about becoming independent. Originally, following Gusun allowed me to learn a lot and come into contact with many things. I can confidently say that my business skills are solid. I had discussed this earlier with Shen Qinglan, who smiled and said, Wen Su, from the start, I knew your potential wasn't limited to just this. After being busy for a couple of days, I took the opportunity to visit Gusun's home on Saturday. I had almost forgotten where they lived before Gusun became successful. All I remembered was that later on, Gusun had moved them into the biggest and best villa. I entered carrying many gifts. His uncle greeted me with a smile and made light-hearted jokes. Everything was the same as in the past, and they were as warm as ever. After chatting for a while, I helped his aunt back to her room to rest. With tears in her eyes, she said, Su, you are so kind and virtuous. If only our son could marry someone like you. I didn't respond. Being called virtuous wasn't necessarily a compliment. After tidying up, I was about to say goodbye and head home when his aunt suddenly grabbed my hand. Su, could you help me find a necklace in the room next to Sun's? I nodded, but missed the guilt flashing in her eyes. I entered that room and quickly found the necklace she mentioned in the cabinet. Just as I was about to stand up, I heard a noise behind me. I turned around quickly, only to see the door was firmly shut, and a growing unease began to swell within me. I tentatively asked, Uncle, Aunt, could you open the door for me? From outside, his aunt's voice came, Su, you and Son have a misunderstanding that needs to be resolved. Don't blame your aunt, I just want you two to make things right. My heart felt like it had suddenly plummeted from a great height. The anxiety I felt was now confirmed. Su, don't bother trying to leave. This room was modified by your uncle and it's not easy to open by most people. At that moment, I didn't know how to feel. I felt as though my body was sinking into an icy lake, continuously falling deeper. I took out my phone, and as expected, there was no signal. She wasn't sick. This was a setup. They even prepared this room knowing that I would come to fetch something for them. They went to great lengths to lock me in here. Without hearing my response, my uncle also spoke. Su, don't worry, we don't mean to harm you. Sun will be back soon, and you can have a good talk. Alright, I had no room to refuse. When Gusun returned, I was sitting on a chair inside the room, expressionless, staring at the door until I heard noises outside. The door was suddenly opened from the outside. Revealing Gusun's face, he rushed in and hugged me tightly, breathing heavily. Su, you still care about me, right? My parents lied to you saying I had a car accident, and you came running without a second thought. If it really came to that, you'd still be by my side. I let him hold me, motionless. After a while, he still hadn't let go. I gave a forced, sarcastic smile. Gusun, are you despicable? He stiffened. A good horse doesn't eat the grass behind it. Much less a patch of grass that's rotten from the root. Your parents imprisoning me is illegal. Do you know that? I asserted firmly. He opened his mouth, speechless. You know, I continued, and you know that the reason they tricked me here, pretending you were sick, was a lie, yet you pretend not to know, as if that would absolve you from any involvement. I shouldn't have harbored any illusions about your parents. Your whole family is just as rotten. His aura turned cold and harsh. He gripped my chin tightly, forcing me to look up at him. Su, don't repeatedly test my limits. Didn't you used to adore me the most? That was before I understood. I replied. Before, I didn't appreciate your feelings, but now I do. I realized that the person I liked was not the imaginary Xiaoyun, but the real you by my side. Can we start over? I know last time Shen Qinglan pretended to be your boyfriend, and you two weren't really dating. If it were my past life, before I had made up my mind to sign the divorce papers, this statement would have moved me immensely, but some words, when spoken too late, become meaningless. I threw his own words from his past life back at him. Gusun, stop pretending. Xiaoyun was such a good girl, and you ruined it. How could you be so useless? Gusun's voice was strained. She's good. But it's only you I like. She doesn't understand me. She thinks I'm not ambitious enough, that I can't make a comeback. She never acknowledged me and always compared me unfavorably to self-made executives. He didn't really love me that much. The reason why the unattainable is called the moonlight is because, like the moon, it hangs high and is forever out of reach. People always yearn for what they can't have, and now, Xiaoyun had come back, just like I once did. She stood by Gusun as he started his business, aiming to build a business empire. They had their moments of happiness, just like any ordinary couple. Xiaoyun also comforted him and supported his entrepreneurial efforts. But unexpectedly, Xiaoyun was different from me. She preferred motivational encouragement. Remember Zhang, whose family went bankrupt and he started a business. He negotiated with other executives daily, drank till midnight, hardly ever sober. Nearly drank himself to death once, and Wang, whose company is now doing well, his company went bankrupt twice, and he nearly committed suicide, but he still made it through. You should learn from their experiences, especially since you have a background in finance. Starting a business shouldn't be too hard for you. I used to be much gentler and more thoughtful. That's not who I am. I'm more impulsive. Being in love changed me. But I've come to my senses now. Smiling, I said to him. Isn't she right, Gusun? No one wants you. But I'm wanted. Okay. Gusun's eyes were moist, and he struggled to speak. In this life, without my help, that largest order from Shen Qinglan might never have been his. That was the key to his initial success. But what's gone is gone. and nothing can amend it. Angered, he slammed the door as he left, leaving only these words behind. Wen-Su, I hope you can see things clearly. I don't socialize much normally, lately. I've mostly been in contact with Shen Qinglan since he's the president of the company, and tomorrow is Sunday, perhaps no one will even notice I'm not around. I curled up in the chair, quietly staring at the tiny window on the wall. The moonlight outside was faintly visible. A soft noise snapped me out of my thoughts. I paused for a moment. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from above. Wen-Shu, you didn't even react to the sound. Why are you so dazed? I looked up and saw a figure who shouldn't have been there. Shen Qinglan opened the window. He leaned in, his expression teasing yet somewhat comical, but I sharply noticed that he seemed angry. President Shen, why are you here? He retorted, if I didn't come, who knows how long you'd wait before escaping. You could delay so much work. The evil capitalist. 1 second, 2 seconds, quite some time passed, and we looked at each other in silence. I suddenly asked, President Shen, did you call the police? He raised an eyebrow. You actually thought about calling the police? Of course, I have to call. They imprisoned me and restricted my freedom. Why wouldn't I call the police? Shen Qinglan muttered to himself. I thought you liked Gusun so much that you wouldn't call the police. What? Nothing. I couldn't imagine how Shen Qinglan could remain so steadily perched at that small window for so long. I quickly urged him to call the police. He tested. So should I really go? Go, please go. But time passed, and he didn't move. I looked at him, puzzled. He pursed his lips, serious for once. I'm afraid you'll be scared if I leave. Scared of what? Aren't you afraid of the dark? How did you know? I am afraid of the dark, but I had spent so much time with Gusun in my previous life. He would say to me, what's there to be afraid of in the dark? Can't you stop being so melodramatic? So, melodrama it was. Later, I forced myself not to be afraid. Gradually, it seemed I really wasn't that scared anymore. I stared at him intently, but he dared not meet my gaze. Gusun seemed to hear some noise inside the house. The moment he opened the door, Shen Qinglan had already left the window. The window high up was shut again, and the moonlight shone through. Gusun finally relaxed. Are you hungry? I didn't respond to him. I was waiting for Shen Qinglan. He said he would take me out safely when the police cars arrived. The Gu family was taken aback. With the signal jammed, I couldn't make calls or communicate with anyone outside. Gusun seemed to realize something. He suddenly turned back and looked at me, calm and composed, and then saw Shen Qinglan swiftly walking over and embracing me. I stared at him, bewildered. I softly asked, Shen Qinglan, did you know me before? Knowing I was afraid of the dark, giving up his spot for me last life, being able to locate Gusun when he couldn't contact me. It was hard not to be suspicious. He stiffened slightly, his face growing more somber. I had planned to wait until I died, then put a QR code on my tombstone for you to scan and see what you had forgotten, but you found out earlier, which is really troublesome. But you don't look troubled at all. He just wasn't very willing to talk about the past now. Gusun ran away. The police couldn't find him. Shen Qinglan worried about me, personally escorting me home every day. Only when he saw the lights on in my house would he leave. For a few days, I was safe. I frowned, not understanding why Gusun ran away. This only serves to exacerbate his punishment. Although his company is small, it required substantial investment. Almost all the remaining money his family had was poured into his projects during a previous bidding event that I encountered at work. It seemed that the Shin Corporation also planned to compete. I don't know why Shin Corporation didn't win the bid in the past life. Instead, Gusun and I ended up benefiting from it. His company is now in chaos, virtually leaderless, which complicates my feelings further. Seeing the company I worked hard to build in my previous life in such a state leaves me feeling somewhat lost and distressed. Shen Qinglan knew about it before I did. He was the one who called me into his office to discuss it. Lifting his eyelids slowly, he looked at me leisurely and said, Wen-Su, how could you have fallen for such a man before? I shrugged. I don't know. You take him if you want. He clenched his molars and suddenly laughed out of frustration. I certainly don't want my future children to have a criminal record. I know the top ophthalmologists globally. I can send you for a checkup for free. How can you not see a good man when he's right in front of you? I used to be as timid as having a criminal record when I was with Gusun. These past few days, I've been extremely busy, and Gusun hasn't shown up. Soon, I won't have to work for someone else. I won't live for others. I am capable. So why should I serve others? Shen Qingli supports my decision. He says that if a company fears its employees' abilities or worries about them starting their own businesses, that company won't last long. The streetlights were dim. Shen Qingli dropped me off at the entrance of my residential area, and I asked him to let me out here. Lately, the security guards have been assuming he's my boyfriend, and I didn't want to cause any misunderstandings. Shenqingli softly said, okay, I wouldn't want to keep you from finding a boyfriend. I braced myself and walked into the residential area on my own. It was only when I got near my home that I remembered the light at the entrance was broken, which made me uneasy. Just as I reached the stairwell, a hand reached out from the darkness before I could react. I was pulled into the stairwell alcove, another hand covering my mouth so tightly I couldn't make a sound. In the moment our breaths mingled, I thought I heard the intense beating of his heart. I was too familiar with Gu Sun in my past life. It didn't take long for me to guess it was him. Even though he was still wanted by the authorities, Gu Sun, I said. He slowly released his hand, breathing heavily, his heartbeat racing, his eyes, dark as deep pools, fixed intently on mine. I tried to stay calm. Gu Sun, don't make a mistake. His voice trembled again and again, like a lost child, full of confusion and helplessness. I think, I already made a mistake. What should I do? Was he referring to giving up Xia Yunchen, or the fact that he and his parents had locked me up? He slowly grasped my hand, his palms sweaty and trembling. In the darkness, I noticed his eyes were slightly red, his voice shaking. He asked, Su, why did you push me towards someone else? Don't you like me anymore? My mind exploded. I clenched my fist to keep calm. He slowly continued, these days, I keep dreaming of you. At this point, Gu Sun should not have liked me yet. He added, in the dreams. I clearly realize it's you and me, but those scenarios have never happened before. I looked towards the stairs, thinking about how to escape, and replied nonchalantly, like what? In the dream, Yunchen never came back to the country but died abroad. I pretended to be mute, and later, you insisted on marrying me. In my dreams, it was always you by my side, helping me fight my way back to the top. You even risked your health, drinking with corporate executives until you developed a bleeding ulcer, all to help me secure orders. I slowly looked up at him, almost in disbelief. These were things that had actually happened in our past life. How could he possibly dream of them? I kept my expression neutral. If all you have to tell me about are these baseless accusations, then you've got the wrong person. He grabbed my arm, his eyes trembled and his whole being seemed shattered. Xiu, you've been reborn too, haven't you? I asked calmly. Gu Sun, have you lost your mind? At my words, he seemed to truly lose it. When I found out you liked Shen Qinglan but pushed me towards Xia Yunchen, I was already mad. He bent down and forcefully kissed me. I struggled and turned my face away, so he only kissed my cheek. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. I only felt the breeze from a punch and didn't even see how it was delivered. Gu Sun was already on the ground, still staring straight at me. Enduring the pain, he pleaded with a trembling voice, Xiu, please don't leave me. I looked away, towards Shen Qinglan, and stepped forward to tightly wrap my arms around his waist. I could feel his body tense uncomfortably. I whispered, why did you come? He replied, you didn't respond to my message. I was worried something had happened to you, so I came to check. I breathed a sigh of relief. Gu Sun was apprehended and taken into custody for illegal detention. Although he was an accessory, he was the main instigator and had even tried to escape the law, which added to his charges. He wanted to see me. I went. He had shaved his head, his former glory was gone, his eyes were full of despair and guilt. Xiu, the person I owe the most in my life is you. I'm sorry for how poorly I treated you in our past life. If I had remembered my past memories sooner and treated you better, would everything have been different? I cut him off, my eyes fixed on him, my voice low and emotionless. No, from the moment I decided on divorce, I never planned on liking you again. His eyes dimmed further, and he looked much more haggard. Gu Sun, the one you should really be apologizing to is the company you founded, because that too was once our hard work. I no longer paid attention to Gu Sun. He truly faded from my life. Shen Qinglan often took me to dinners. I wanted to refuse, but he raised his eyebrows and said, don't you want to start your own business? How can you do that without understanding the market? I understood all too well, but dared not say it, as the dinner was wrapping up, and I went out to pay the bill. I overheard a conversation about me. President Shen, you like this young lady so much, why not make her your secretary? They liked to play favorites, bringing people they liked into their offices to work closely as personal secretaries. Shen Qinglan raised an eyebrow, his voice indulgent. She has her own capabilities, why confine her to my side? All I can do is provide her a platform to showcase her talents. They looked at each other and chuckled awkwardly. Most didn't take it seriously, thinking she was just another woman. Much later, it was this woman who founded a leading domestic company for women's products. When they saw me making money, They became envious and came to seek advice on making money. I smiled and said, if you want to make money from women, start by respecting them. Of course, that was a story for another time. I clenched the fabric of my coat tightly outside the door. When leaving, Shen Qinglan, as usual, walked me to my doorstep, but I didn't get out of the car. I turned, my gaze intense, staring at him. Shen Qinglan, you mentioned we had met before. Can you tell me about it? His dark lashes trembled slightly. You wouldn't want to know. Who knows what a fish enjoys if not another fish? Finally, he was willing to talk. His entrepreneurial journey hadn't been smooth sailing. After his business failed, he didn't even have $5 to his name. Sitting at the entrance of a convenience store, I watched the sky. When I came out of the store, I mistook him for a homeless man and took the initiative to buy him some food and drink. It was just a simple gesture for me, hardly memorable, but he never forgot it. Later, when he saw me with Gu Sun, he willingly gave way. I pursed my lips. Why didn't you mention this at the start? Did you not want to recall the hardships of starting your business? I could understand that. He shook his head and looked away. I don't see that period of starting my business as a stain. It's just, I always wanted to appear strong and unblemished in your eyes. I placed my hands on the sides of his face, turning his head back to look at me. Then slowly, I embraced him, who is always strong. No one is forever weak. And the person you were then has shaped the person you are today. Your success in starting a business is truly cool. Really, I nodded vigorously. Really, I think you're both cool and impressive. He pondered for a while, meeting my gaze with a slight smile that seemed to hook the air. A ticklish, captivating voice followed. Consider making my position permanent. Huh, it's a great deal. You can't lose. A ripple of laughter filled my eyes. Then I suppose I'll just have to accept the hardship. There's always someone who appears when I'm covered in scars and my heart is in shambles, giving me the chance not to lose the ability to love and be loved. Later, he said that day his throat was almost smoking. Luckily, I liked it. Story 2. In the 5th year of my marriage to Gu Qing, the affair he had with a girl he kept in a hotel was exposed, and everyone knew about it, to prevent her from being labeled as the other woman. Gu Qing brought me the divorce papers and said, Teacher Jian helped me in the past, and on his deathbed, he asked me to take care of Jianxi. Now that this has come to light, I cannot ignore it. Over the years, Jianxi was always Gu Qing's first choice. In my past life, when I heard this, I broke down completely, made a huge scene, and refused to divorce. It wasn't until I was diagnosed with severe depression that Gu Qing, influenced by Jianxi's words that I didn't seem sick, concluded I was faking it, believing I was trying to manipulate him and setting a trap to accuse me of infidelity. He filed for divorce directly. That's when I realized I could never compete with someone he felt indebted to, and, in despair, I took my own life. When I opened my eyes again, I signed the divorce papers without hesitation. Chu Tang, after this matter is settled, can we remarry? I was sitting absent-mindedly on a stone bench in the courtyard of the villa when Gu Han, accompanied by Jianxi, approached me. Just 3 hours earlier, Jianxi had been exposed by paparazzi as potentially being Gu Han's lover. The entire internet was digging into her past, cursing her as the homewrecker who intruded into my sweet relationship with Gu Han. Gu Han's loving husband persona had completely collapsed, and the stock prices of Gu Corporation began to fluctuate. In my past life, when Gu Han brought the divorce papers to me, I was so furious that I tore out all the roses he had planted for me in the yard and hysterically questioned him about his relationship with Jianxi. He was merely the daughter of a mentor, and there were a million other ways he could have handled this situation, but he chose to sacrifice me, just to prevent Jianxi's depression from worsening. What Gu Han didn't know was that during the time this scandal was brewing, I too was diagnosed with moderate depression. Chu Tang, Gu Han called me again, bringing me back to the present. I looked down, my gaze falling on the divorce papers on the stone table. He knelt on one knee at my feet, his deep eyes looking up at me, his warm palms enveloping my hands. His tone was coaxing. Chu Tang, do it for me. Okay, we'll announce to the public that our marriage has been in name only for over a year now, and we've been planning to divorce but just hadn't found the right moment. I didn't respond immediately. Behind him, Jianxi, in a white dress and wearing Gu Han's jacket over her shoulders, had pale lips and red-rimmed eyes. Chu Tang, please help me, she pleaded. My mother committed suicide due to depression caused by cyberbullying. I don't want to follow in her footsteps. Sister, I'm kneeling to you. Please help me. As she was about to kneel, Gu Han quickly stood up and helped her, then protectively pulled her into his arms. With a grim expression, he whispered sternly, "What are you doing?" Jianxi choked up, her voice frail and tearful. then lowered her tear-filled eyes. I just wanted to make it easier for you, sister. Guhan's brows furrowed with impatience as he looked at me, the affection in his eyes completely fading. Chu Tang, I'm not here to discuss this with you. I've already decided on this matter, and if you're unwilling to divorce, then don't blame me. I calmly met his gaze, and his next words stopped short. But I knew what he was going to say. He was about to say, Chu Tang, you know what I'm capable of. I have a million ways to make you sign willingly. He was about to escalate to filing for divorce. You can't possibly win against the Gu family's lawyers. Those were his exact words in my past life, and later I was set up to be caught in bed with several male models, solidifying evidence of my infidelity. Overnight, I became branded as an adulterous woman, enduring all the public scorn, and he, along with Jianxi, emerged as the innocent victims. I'll sign. But you have to agree to one thing, I said after a long pause. Guhan looked up at me, nodded in agreement, and handed me a pen. I took it and signed my name on the divorce papers without any hint of emotion. Aren't you going to look at the agreement? Guhan asked. Frowning, I smiled. No need. He was practically left with nothing, giving me all his property, all for Jianxi, to repay a debt of gratitude. Let's make time to visit the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow. Okay, I said. Guhan's hand paused slightly as he held the divorce papers, his eyes looking lost for a moment, but ultimately, he said nothing. As they left, Jianxi turned back to give me a mocking look, her thin lips silently mouthing, you lost, and I did lose. I lost a lifetime, so now I didn't want to lose any more. A short while later, my phone lit up with a message from Guhan. Today was hard on you, Chu Tang, I'm sorry. After this is over, I will give you a grand wedding ceremony, and we'll remarry. I can't just watch Jianxi's depression worsen, you understand, right? Reading his message, I couldn't help but laugh, tears in my eyes. It was the same in my past life. Guhan, in an effort to force me into divorce, conspired with his friends while drunk, but he forgot that his friends were also my friends. Jiang Yuan earnestly advised Guhan not to sacrifice his own marriage for Jianxi, and yet, he also mediated with me, trying to make me sympathize with Guhan, describing him as a man of great loyalty. Back then, it was Jianxi's father who saw potential in Guhan, investing in him and helping him start his business. Without that, Guhan wouldn't be where he was today. At that time, crying, I argued. Guhan could clarify this matter in 1,000 different ways, so why must it lead to divorce? Jiang Yuan fell silent. He had asked Guhan, who had said, I have to disappoint someone. I can only let Chu Tang suffer because she loves me and can understand me. Because I loved him, I had to be the one to sacrifice. What kind of reasoning was that? Fortunately, I still had a chance. Whenever it came to anything about Jianxi, Guhan always handled it particularly quickly. He had just signed the divorce papers with me by day, and by night, he had arranged a press conference. Having his assistant invite me to attend to clarify things, I hadn't even spoken yet, thinking I would refuse. His assistant luckily relayed Guhan's message to me. Miss Chu Tang, you should attend this press conference, if not for Mr. Gu, then for your own reputation, he said. I paused for a second, then let out a scoff. Guhan was threatening me. He was trying to use the same tactics from my past life to force me into a corner, to tarnish my reputation and leave me struggling under public scrutiny. In the end, I would have no choice but to bow and yield. I had never quite understood why. Does Guhan really see me as his wife, or as his enemy? Now he wants to publicly clarify our relationship. I am no exception. The press conference was arranged in the most luxurious hotel lobby in northern Beijing, and the invitees were the most influential journalists in the industry. When Jianxi, dressed in a cheongsam, appeared arm in arm with Guhan, the reporters swarmed them instantly. Guhan instinctively protected Jianxi behind him, smiling as he blocked the microphones for her. Please wait, I will answer all your questions one by one. Can you please make some room now? His voice was gentle, and as he looked up, he caught sight of me, also surrounded by reporters. When our eyes met, I faintly hoped that Guhan would extricate me as well, but the next second, he casually shifted his gaze away. Smiling as he led Jianxi to the stage, as if he had never seen me, I smirked sarcastically. The reporter nearest to me, likely an intern, timidly handed me the microphone, asking, Miss Chu Tang, did you really divorce Mr. Gu? Yes, I replied with a smile and a nod. The intern adjusted his glasses. But you and Mr. Gu met in high school, dated for 7 years, and were married for 5 years. Last month, Mr. Gu even spent a fortune to buy you an island named after you. I continued to smile, though my eyes did not reflect the same cheerfulness. That was what he owed me. for missing my birthday to take care of the sick Jianxi. It was a makeup gift. In my past life, I took pride in this gesture, only to later discover that it was Jiang Yuan's idea. The island was picked by Gu Han's assistant, and he didn't even know where the island was. Do you still love Mr. Gu now? She looked at me nervously, and the surrounding reporters quieted down. Even Gu Han on stage was looking at me. He slightly furrowed his brow. I merely glanced at him calmly and said with a smile, not anymore. The interview didn't last until the end. After Gu Han clarified that our marriage had been in name only a year ago, I left the scene. Overnight, I became Gu Han's unwanted second-hand goods, and Jianxi became the only innocent victim in this public controversy. The interview topped social media for several days, with the topic remaining hot, especially the words spoken by Gu Han. Chu Tang and I had planned to divorce a year ago, but the timing wasn't right. We intended to handle it quietly, but now it has affected an innocent person, so we had no choice but to clarify publicly. Miss Jianxi is not the homewrecker of our relationship. She is the only concern of my teacher in this world. It's only right for me to take care of her, and I hope everyone can view this matter rationally. Some fans were led to believe that the reason for the rupture of my relationship with Gu Han was that I could not tolerate a pure sibling-like bond, and I misinterpreted their so-called kindness. They also said I was petty, not magnanimous enough. Despite 5 years of marriage, I hadn't learned a bit of Gu Han's loyalty and righteousness. The topic fermented for several days. I became the target of public criticism. After collecting the divorce certificate from the Civil Affairs Bureau, Gu Han stopped me. Don't take to heart what's said online. It won't be long before everyone forgets. I stopped in my tracks, unable to help but let out a light laugh. 5, 6, 7. ICU. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Being similarly insulted on social media. Why is the difference so stark? Chu Tang, it's almost New Year in 2 months. How about we remarry at the beginning of next year? He looked at me, about to approach, but I stepped back, my expression indifferent as my gaze shifted to the reporters blocked by the bodyguards not far away. Gu Han seemed to realize something was amiss and stopped where he was. Gu Han, I'm going back to Harbor City. You haven't been back in a long time. It's good to go back. I'll come to pick you up for the new year. I'm not coming back, I said calmly, cutting off Gu Han. His smile froze, confusion flickering in his eyes. I continued, when I agreed to sign the divorce papers, you promised me something. It's time to fulfill it. Gu Han stared at me blankly. When I was reborn, it took me only a few seconds to reconcile the love and hatred I felt for Gu Han. The moment I saw the divorce papers, I thought about tearing them up and causing a scene, but in the end, reason prevailed. After a while, I smiled slightly. Gu Han, I hope you never appear in front of me again. After Chu Tang finished speaking with a smile and retreated into the crowd, Gu Han was slow to react. For a moment, he felt an inexplicable panic, as if he was about to lose something very important. Just like the day Chu Tang calmly signed the divorce papers, feeling a vague unease, she didn't make a fuss. It seemed she had foreseen all the outcomes. Just recently, Chu Tang had made a huge fuss because he forgot her birthday, and he even got slapped by her. He thought it was a sham divorce. Chu Tang would go crazy and cause a scene. He was even prepared for it, but she didn't. Picking up the pen, her expression was as still as dead water. At that moment, he thought about stopping Chu Tang, but in the end, he did nothing. He thought it didn't matter. Chu Tang loved him. It was just a fake divorce, and he would make it up to her later. But it wasn't the same with Jianxi. She couldn't suffer any harm if it weren't for Jianxi's father recognizing his talent, risking being ousted by the shareholders to invest in his project, and helping him grow into one of the emerging elite in Jingbei. He wouldn't have achieved today's successes, nor would he be worthy of Jianxi. On Jianxi's father's deathbed, he hoped Gu Han would ensure Jianxi's life was safe and well. He didn't want to be a treacherous villain. Jiang Yuan once asked him, if one day, Jianxi and Chu Tang both fell into a cliff, who would you save? He laughed then, thinking the question was absurd. He would save Jianxi, but he would die with Chu Tang. Jiang Yuan laughed with him, but then he asked himself, what if Chu Tang doesn't want to die? Gu Han, you can't just because Chu Tang likes you, always take her for granted. If she can't feel your love, she will also despair. That day he dismissed it. He never took those words to heart. Unexpectedly, in the end, they came true. In the night, Gu Han returned to the villa once again. Since marrying him, Chu Tang had always lived in the villa on the mid-mountain. She was an outstanding painter, crowned a prodigious young artist at the age of 10 for her transcendent landscape painting, and everyone felt her mastery in traditional Chinese painting was extraordinary, destined to excel in this field, which indeed she did. Only after marriage, Chutong's style of painting had changed. No longer as before, Chutong's teacher had tried to guide her with dedication, but the impact was minimal. Eventually, Chutang gave up painting and even resisted picking up a paintbrush. Gu Han entered Chutong's studio. He paused for a moment when he saw the landscape painting on the easel. The painting was vivid, though rendered in just a few strokes. When Chen's mother saw the light on in the studio and noticed Gu Han, she was slightly surprised and greeted him. "Sir." Gu Han looked up. "When did my wife paint this?" Chen's mother responded. "The day you came back with Miss Jian." Gu Han nodded, his lips curving into a smile that he couldn't bring himself to complete. After leaving the studio, he returned to the room he shared with Chu Tang, reminding himself repeatedly that their divorce was only a pretense. Once the storm passed, he planned to propose to Chu Tang again and give her a grand wedding, but somehow, his heart still felt empty. He dismissed everything Chu Tang had said in anger today as mere nonsense. Their home was in Beijing North. How could she not return? Knock, knock. The door to the master bedroom suddenly sounded. Gu Han, sitting at the foot of the bed, looked up to see Jianxi. She stood at the doorway in her thin clothes, her face slightly flushed, quietly watching Gu Han. "Why are you here?" Jianxi pursed her lips. "I was scared staying alone in the hotel, so I came to find you." "Is that so?" She spoke, eyes downcast. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." Gu Han frowned slightly but replied, "It's okay, it's getting late. I'll ask Chen's mother to prepare a guest room for you to stay in," he said as he was about to call for her. Jianxi stepped forward into the room, her eyes soft and pleading as she looked at Gu Han. "Brother Han, I don't want to stay in the guest room. Is that okay?" she asked softly. Gu Han's frown deepened. He was about to refuse, but seeing her reddened eyes, he softened. "When my plane landed in the city, it was Sun Chu who came to pick me up, years ago, at 18. He saved a girl but was falsely accused of assault and sentenced to 3 years. With a criminal record, no company was willing to hire him. I met him at an art exhibition. He never interacted with others, always keeping his gaze down. If people approached him, he would just shy away. One night, as I was heading home, I encountered some thugs and was nearly assaulted, but he happened to pass by. I thought he would just watch indifferently, but he didn't hesitate for a moment. That day I asked him, 'What if I turned on you too?' He just gave a bitter smile. Then I'd accept it. With my family's influence, I helped clear his name, and on the day the truth was revealed, he stood at a distance, eyes red, bowing in thanks as he looked at me. 3 years in prison hadn't eroded his kindness. My father, grateful for his act of saving me, extended an olive branch and arranged for him to join the company. Starting from the bottom, he is now one of my father's most trusted aides. Miss, it's been a long time, Sun Chu said, wearing a trench coat as he took my suitcase. I nodded, feeling a strange tinge of sourness at the tip of my nose. 5 years ago, I married Gu Han and moved north with him. At the time of my accident, he was sent by my father to Country A for a closed training session. I never saw Sun Chu again until my death. Miss, are you planning to leave again after this return? He asked me. I replied, no, I'm not leaving. Sun Chu chuckled. Mr. Chu knows you're back and he's very happy about it. Suddenly, I felt a momentary shock. My hand tightened in my pocket, and a tinge of bitterness colored my heart. By then, my divorce with Gu Han had become public knowledge. Worried that I would be wronged, my father flew from the port city to Jingbei overnight. He tried to persuade me earnestly. Gu Han never really thinks things through. He chose to collaborate with the old man from the Jian family instead of accepting your help. To put it nicely, he didn't want to rely on you. But isn't he still relying on someone by taking the Jian family's investment? Xiao Tang, it's over, and Gu Han isn't right for you. He wanted to take me back to the port city, but I refused, crying and insisting on staying. Through tears, I said, I love Gu Han, I don't want a divorce. Why should I sacrifice myself for his gratitude, even if it kills me? I absolutely won't leave. I'm not going anywhere. Eventually, my father was so upset by my stubbornness that he suffered a heart attack and was rushed to the ICU, receiving several critical condition notices. Overnight, my mother's hair turned white. When my father woke up, he said nothing, but I knew he was disappointed in me. As my mother was leaving, she still tried to persuade me, your father has never interfered with any of your decisions over the years. But Gu Han is not a good man. At that time, I wouldn't listen to anything and stubbornly continued on my destructive path. It cost me dearly to finally understand. I wasn't that important to Gu Han. Are they all doing well? I asked Sun Chu. Chu nodded. The group is developing very well, Mr. Chu and his wife are also very healthy. I smiled and met his cold gaze. Thank you, Chu. Thank you for fulfilling my filial duties on my behalf. Chu shook his head. He said it was his duty. If it hadn't been for my father and I helping him out back then, he might have died in some forgotten corner long ago. On social media, hot topics continue to emerge relentlessly. From Jianxi being Guhan's mistress, it has now turned into accusations of me being heartless and ungrateful. Yesterday, paparazzi caught a photo of me and Chu at the airport. Now they are saying that I had an affair long ago, which is why my relationship with Guhan fell apart. I couldn't help but laugh when I saw. As I lowered my eyes, the phone screen showed a photo sent by Jianxi from a burner account, a photo of her spending the night at the mountain villa. Last night Guhan asked me to stay over. What do you think he'll do tonight? Guhan is a very responsible person. Now that the shackles are gone, Xiao Tang, your husband is mine now. She tried to provoke me, but my heart was already still. Chu poured me a cup of tea and glanced worriedly at my phone screen, saying in a deep voice, Miss, I will reclaim the justice for the grievances you've suffered. I didn't respond to him, but instead asked, I heard your father introduced several distinguished young ladies to you, intending for you to settle down. Why did you refuse? Chu seemed surprised by my question, his eyes lowered, his fingertips rubbing the rim of the teacup. After a long silence, I asked again, is it because of me? He suddenly looked up, meeting my gaze before guiltily looking away. Though I hadn't seen Chu in 5 years, every birthday, I received a generous gift from him. He lavished money freely, and from time to time, he transferred money into my account. He gave me almost everything he earned. I refused many times, but he persisted. Finally, I called him and for the first time, I lost my temper with him. I said, Chu, you saved me once, and I helped you once, we're even. It was your father who let you into the company. But you've gotten to where you are today on your own. You don't owe me anything. I'm not your creditor, and by doing this, you're only endangering my marriage and causing Guhan to misunderstand our relationship. After that, Chu stopped transferring money to me. His gifts were also just symbolic gestures. Chu, I've told you that you don't owe me anything. No sooner had I finished speaking than Chu pursed his lips and said, no. What? He looked at me, a slight smile playing on his lips, his face calm, his eyes filled with affection. I adore you, Miss. I know I'm worlds apart from you, Miss. I've never dared to hope that you would look back at me, but my heart belongs to you, and I don't want to lie to myself or hold anyone else back. As Chu's voice trailed off, I looked at him quietly. He was the same age as me, but much more mature. When I first saw him, he was timid and out of place. Now, he has become a pillar of the company. The most valued person by my father. Last night, when I returned to the old mansion, my father talked with me for a long time about the future of the company, my future. Finally, he asked me 2 questions. The first was, do you still like Guhan? I shook my head, giving a negative answer. But to the second question, I remained silent. He asked me, would you be willing to marry Chu? My father is planning to retire, and although Chu has been with my father for many years, he is not originally from our family. I was somewhat confused at first, but now I also have an answer. Chu, will you marry me? 2 days later, in northern Beijing, Guhan sat in the studio, looking down at the day when Chu Tang accepted that intern's interview. Curiously, the intern asked her, do you still love Mr. Gu? Chu Tang smiled and responded, not anymore. Those simple 3 words, however, stirred an inexplicable oppression in him. He replayed that clip countless times, trying to find something in Chu Tang's eyes, but to no avail. Frustrated, he pulled up his chat with Chu Tang, only to realize that the last message stopped when he reminded her to pick up the divorce certificate at the civil affairs office at 9 o'clock, to which she replied with a simple okay. And then there was nothing. Chu Tang used to stick to him, sharing everything with him big or small, and he would respond in time. He scrolled back through the records, later, many times. It was just Chu Tang talking to herself. Occasionally, he would reply briefly with an okay or I know. Work at the company was busy. After teacher Jian passed away, Jianxi suffered from depression and repeatedly attempted suicide. He simply couldn't manage everything. Suddenly, Jiang Yuan sent a message. Chu Tang is getting married to Chu. Guhan stood up abruptly, accidentally knocking over a nearby easel. As he hurried to pick it up, a medical report was pressed under the drawing board. He paused for a second, and when he read all the content, his fingertips trembled. The patient exhibits severe emotional fluctuations, with recurring suicidal thoughts. he was suffering from severe sleep disorders, and upon evaluation, it was determined that he had tendencies of moderate depression. That marked the date when he proposed a fake divorce to Chu Tang. Brother Han, what happened? Jianxi, hearing the commotion, hurried from the master bedroom to the studio. When she saw the medical report in Gu Han's hands, a scheming glint passed through her eyes. Can I take a look at this report? Jianxi asked softly. Gu Han didn't say anything, only feeling a recurring pain in his chest. She took the opportunity to grab the medical report, flipped through a few pages, then feigned relief, patting Gu Han on the shoulder and comforting him. Brother Han, don't worry, brother, have you forgotten? I also suffer from depression. You've seen what it's like when I have an episode. I saw your sister the other day, she looked so healthy, not at all like she was ill. Maybe she was just too angry and used a fake medical report to deceive you. Jianxi looked at Gu Han, just as she was about to continue. Gu Han, pressing down his emotions, took the report back from her hands. He had just walked a few steps when something occurred to him, and he turned back to her. After tomorrow, you shouldn't stay in the master bedroom. Chu Tang will make a fuss if she finds out. After he spoke, Jianxi stood frozen in place. By the time she reacted and chased after him, Brother Han, Gu Han had already gone downstairs. In such a hurry he even forgot his coat, regardless of whether the medical report was real or fake. Regardless of whether Chu Tang was going to marry Sun Chu, at that moment, his only thought was to see Chu Tang and bring her back home. Sun Chu took our wedding very seriously, personally overseeing every detail. By day he would rush between the company and the wedding venue. By night, he sat in the living room, painstakingly writing invitations. Sun Chu, you should let the assistant handle these matters. You're already so busy with work, there's no need to go to all this trouble, I said. Holding a cup at the top of the stairs, looking down at him in the living room, he put down his pen, smiled warmly at me, and said, no matter what, I want to give the best to the lady. I know I might not be in the lady's heart, but she is at the very top of mine. The moment our eyes met, I was momentarily dazed. My heart stirred for the first time in a long while. Lady, don't feel burdened, just be the beautiful bride. Sun Chu continued to smile, his gaze not hiding his feelings any longer. Finally, I smiled back and nodded. What I hadn't anticipated was that Gu Han would find his way to Harbor City, just as Sun Chu and I were coming out after trying on the wedding attire. I saw Gu Han standing under an opposite camphor tree. He was dressed in a simple white shirt, his hair disheveled, his face slightly pale, devoid of any sparkle in his eyes. His gaze lingered on Sun Chu's and my intertwined hands for a moment before shifting away. Gu Han forced a smile and looked at me. Chu Tang, I've come to take you back home. Let's not wait until next year. How about we go back now and remarry? As he spoke, he took a few steps towards us. Sun Chu instinctively moved to shield me, but I stopped him. I straightened his slightly crooked tie and said softly, go wait for me in the car. I'll be back soon. Mom made your favorite dish tonight. Let's go home together later. Sun Chu looked down at me, a slight smile on his lips, and replied, okay. He then glanced briefly at Gu Han before walking towards the direction of the garage. At that moment, it was just Gu Han and me left by the roadside. He subconsciously moved closer to me, but I discreetly stepped back a few paces and softly said, Mr. Gu, let's keep some distance between us, otherwise the paparazzi might catch us. Then there will be rumors on social media about me endlessly entangling with my ex-husband, no matter when. People always seem to be particularly harsh on women. The incident with Jianxi is a prime example. It was clear that Gu Han was the indecisive one from start to finish, yet in the end, I was blamed for not being magnanimous enough. Chu Tang, Gu Han's eyes dimmed, a bitter smile not reaching his eyes. I've already had my assistant handle the situation on the platform. I'm sorry you had to suffer. I didn't know you were facing so much trouble. I didn't know. Gu Han, you knew. I looked at him and spoke in a flat tone. If he hadn't known that public opinion could be so painful and depressing, he wouldn't have chosen to divorce me to help Jianxi. In my past life, I was framed for having affairs with several male models, and after being divorced from Gu Han, my reputation was ruined, and my career plummeted. Everyone mocked me. Some even confronted me saying, Chu Tang, after being ruined by your ex-husband like this, how can you still have the face to live? If it were me, I would have jumped from the 18th floor. And Mrs. Gu Han never really cared about her, otherwise how could he have driven her to death? Later, I suffered from insomnia night after night, sitting by the floor-to-ceiling windows watching the lights of thousands of homes. I burned down my studio. Everything Gu Han gave me was also burned, as if by doing so I could carve him out of my heart. I vented all the injustice I hated why the boy who once filled my heart and eyes would lead me to a dead end. Eventually, I committed suicide by wrist cutting. To this day, I still remember the feeling of blood slowly draining from my body. Guhan opened his mouth to explain, but the words wouldn't come out. In the end, he could only lower his head helplessly. Tang, I will make it up to you. I couldn't help but laugh. I had heard that too many times before. After Jianshi's father passed away. On the night of Guhan's engagement banquet, he left saying, Chu Tang, Jianshi has run into some trouble, I need to go see her. On the day of the wedding, Jianshi attempted suicide again, and after sending me back to the bridal room, he didn't return all night. At that time, I wavered whether to continue this relationship, but seeing Guhan's exhausted appearance, I endured it. I loved Guhan, so I was willing to accompany him through all the hardships. Every broken promise eventually turned into, Chu Tang, I will make it up to you properly in the future. Guhan always thought we had a lifetime ahead of us, but he forgot that love can be exhausted, in the last life. Until the end, I could no longer tell if I loved Guhan, or if it was just obsession. After a while, I said sarcastically, Guhan, actually what I wanted was very little, but you still couldn't care for me. I am also the treasure cherished by my parents. Why should I let you trample on me? So let's just forget it. As I finished speaking, I looked away and was about to leave when Guhan frantically grabbed my arm. His tall body nearly stumbled and fell. His pale thin lips parted. I don't agree. It can't just end like this. Chu Tang, you are my wife. You can't leave me. His voice trembled at the end. I laughed, pulled out my hand. We are already divorced, Guhan. He was forced to step down from his position at the company. The divorce papers you forced me to sign, the threats to make me attend a press conference to clear things up, and the way you watched me go to the civil affairs office to get the divorce certificate, all of this was your doing. You can't deny that, right? Guhan was rendered speechless. I needed to leave. As he tried to follow me again, I nodded slightly towards the direction behind him. Mr. Gu, actually, you and Miss Jian are quite a match. Guhan's face turned pale instantly. He arrived in Harbor City in the early morning. After his assistant found Chu Tang's itinerary, he came to find her without resting for a moment. However, when he saw her in a wedding dress, laughing and playing with Sin Chu, he gradually slowed down his steps and just stood there under the camphor tree, watching. He couldn't remember when he last saw Chu Tang laugh so freely. Every time they met, they would end up arguing because of Jianshi, and gradually, he stopped going home often. Either staying overnight at the company or drinking with Jiang Yuan and others all night long. So, at that moment, he was painfully aware, the words Chu Tang said at the civil affairs office that day, came from her heart. She didn't want him anymore, but he couldn't live without her. He stood outside the bridal shop for as long as the two were busy inside. He even thought about rushing in to beat Sin Chu up, warning him, don't covet my wife, but in the end, he couldn't take that step. He was afraid Jianshi would hate him. Brother Han, sister has been gone for a long time. Jianshi tugged at Guhan's sleeve, bringing him back from his reverie. He looked down at her, his voice hoarse. Why are you here? I heard sister is going to marry someone else. I was worried you'd be upset. So I came to see you, she said softly. Just about to embrace Guhan when he furrowed his brows and placed his hand on Jianshi's shoulder. In a moment, her eyes became moist. Brother Han, sister doesn't want you, but I do. Let's get married, shall we? Guhan had never refused her any request before. She had thought that after Chu Tang divorced him, she could easily take the place of Mrs. Gu, but at that moment, Guhan's expression suddenly turned cold. Jianshi, do you know what you're saying? I know, Guhan, I like you. It was the first time she openly expressed her feelings. Guhan, however, gave a pained smile, and as he smiled, tears began to flow. Jiang Yuan had warned him countless times. Jianshi's gaze towards you is unsettling. If you don't want your marriage to be destroyed, it's better to send her away. Guhan, you are blinded by the situation, unable to see Jianshi's true intentions. Send Jianshi away, don't let her ruin your marriage. Yet he never believed it, he really deserved it. Jianshi, in an unexpected turn, directed and performed a scandalous act. She hired people to take photos of her and Guhan entering and exiting a hotel together and then bought cyber troops to spread rumors about herself being the other woman. Social media erupted into chaos. Guhan was overwhelmed with stress. He had planned to send Jianshi abroad, but upon seeing the trending topic, he nearly strangled her on the roadside. He confronted her, demanding, why would you do this? Initially, Jianshi tried to appeal to his emotions, but as she was being choked, struggling to breathe, she suddenly laughed maniacally and openly admitted, I just wanted to be Mrs. Gu and force Chu Tang and you to divorce. Gu Han, if you truly loved Chu Tang, I wouldn't have had a chance. Enraged, Gu Han vomited blood and fainted on the spot. The incident was caught on video by passers-by and went viral online. Gu Corporation's stock plummeted, and Gu Han, upon waking, was confused and was promptly ousted from his CEO position. As for Jianxi, now disgraced, she had no choice but to leave the country. Unfortunately, on her way to the airport, she died in a car accident. On my wedding day, Sun Chu gave me a grand wedding, the city adorned with flowers and fireworks all night, known to everyone. When a guest joked that marrying Sun Chu was the blessing of my past life, Sun Chu scoffed and had the person removed from the wedding. He then boldly declared during the vows, I am the son-in-law of the Chu family. In this life, I belong to the Chu family, and in death, I will be the Chu family's ghost. Sun Chu knew I might not fully love him, but his treatment of me never wavered. On our wedding night, he held me tightly, as if afraid I would leave or disappear. Only after pressing him did I learn Gu Han had committed suicide. Before dying, he had a lucid moment and sent a medical report left in his studio to Sun Chu. He also wrote me a long letter. Every word was filled with his remorse. He also spoke of a nightmare he had. In the dream, he forced me to divorce, and when I refused to compromise, he schemed to have me sent to other men's beds. Eventually, I desperately committed suicide by cutting my wrists. He said that in the dream, it wasn't intentional, he just wanted me to yield, never imagining it would drive me to despair and death. He didn't know that my illness was real. He said if he had known, he would never have treated me that way. Seeing the bathroom filled with blood, his heart broke, wishing he were the one who died. The letter ended with, fortunately, what happened in the dream didn't occur, and another line, I'm sorry, I scoffed.